when I pull out the veto in the briefcase, you can read it on the stream. Not you, Nick. You will have to use your imagination to figure out what this says. But the audience can see that this says Weekly Manga Recap.
Okay.
Of course, I might not need it. I'm probably just going to use it today to make sure we keep both Exorcist comedies in the recap. That's a great face. I wish we were recording.
Okay. Hello, one and all. Welcome to Weekly Manga Recap. It's July the 3rd of 2024. We are deep in the heart of summer, and it is time to beat the heat with some manga. That's what manga does for you. It cools off your blazing temperature. I'm not a doctor. Don't take that as medical advice. If you're suffering from heat exhaustion or heat stroke, you should, I don't know, drink water or something.
Yeah, take care of yourself. The blazing hot days of summer are finally gone. Or they're here. I don't know. I've stopped paying attention. I just incinerate upon leaving the house, and I'm like, sounds right.
You're like, I guess this is summer, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know what's summer and what's just the world today, if that makes sense. Like, part of me just assumes that I'll walk outside and it'll be raining acid, and I'm just like, of course, the EPA was dissolved and replaced with a rock band, so of course this is gonna happen.
How good is the rock band? This is very important.
It's mostly ex-Seether members, so not great.
Ex-Seether? Like the ones that fell off over time, they all joined up slowly together.
Yeah, it was sort of a gathering. It's intentional. They gathered these cast-offs, but it's still Seether. At best.
Yeah, it's been really weird because, like, at work they have been trying desperately to beat the heat, so it's actually been really cold at work because they're like, we are going to up the air conditioning to levels you have never seen before. It's like, it's so cold.
Can I stop this? There is I would understand that because you work in hospitality. I would understand that for the sense of clientele, guests. It's strange that you also have to suffer that. You would assume they would just be like, whatever, who cares if the office workers are whatever, like, as long as they're not dead, you know?
Yeah, sometimes I feel that way.
Yeah.
I'm sure that they're fine back there.
They're doing great, just you, like, as like you have
They're
icicles.
not front facing. We don't actually need them to, like, look happy. So
yeah. You just have icicles hanging off your mustache. Look like Jack Nicholson at the end of Shining.
That's just how I look all the time. Anytime the temperature drops below 72, I'm like, ugh.
Oh God, this is just the world I live in that I had like a small like mood drop because I just thought about the fact that like, oh, eventually like later this year, it's going to get dark around like 4 p.m. again. Like I am enjoying, like right now to the audience, I mean, you can see like there's sunlight coming in behind me at like, it's like 8 o'clock, and this will still probably be here for like another like 30 minutes or so. And I love this. This is like the best part is like sunlight till the end of the day. And I just get so bummed thinking about the fact that eventually that won't be the case. But then I get happy again knowing eventually it will be the case again. Unless, again, we fired the sun. We decided it was too woke, so we're lighting everything just by burning, I don't know, baby diapers or something. I have no idea what the solutions to any of these problems that don't exist are, but
People are like, the sun makes rainbows. That's too gay.
Yeah,
Too
they're
woke.
like, it's been infected by the LGBTQ. We got to get rid of the sun. It's DEI. Like ever since the sun started, it's DEI hiring practices. There's been a lot more sunspots. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, they've uncovered the plot, Quinn, that every June a different cosmological entity becomes gay.
We took rainbows. The moon's always kind of been gay, but we've definitely cemented that we're coming for the sun next. That is happening.
I don't know how to not just go into an entire thing about. I saw a video where people were talking, where people were dunking on this guy for believing that not only is the Earth flat, but beyond the ice ring is Valhalla.
Then go to it. Just go. Like
that's the wild thing.
If
like,
I found out heaven was within travel distance, I would definitely be like, well, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go see it.
Like, that's the wild thing to me about certain conspiracy theories. Like, I understand to a certain degree, like, people who believe, like, the moon landings were faked. Obviously, that is not true. But I can understand the level of intellect where you can disbelieve it by saying, like, oh, this is all faked evidence, blah, blah, blah.
I know somebody who believes the moon landing is fake.
I'm so sorry.
I am related to them.
I'm so sorry. But the moon is like, it's not something like just anyone can just like, you know, go to. And that's kind of the thing that like a lot of people hold on to, is that like you limit yourself to a certain degree of evidence. And it's like, well, it doesn't appear that that's possible to me, so I don't believe these stories. Sure. The Earth being flat. It is so easy to travel the globe.
Yeah, it made more sense when it's the 1500s. No one knows how to fucking like really use a boat. Like
people generally knew in the 1500s though.
Yeah, but like it's still like I get it why there's like a little concern. It's just so easily provable nowadays that it's like
the plane and fly.
No, they're gonna be like, you don't understand. I'm not high enough up. There's a whole thing.
Oh my god, and it's like, oh no, the curvature of the Earth, that's just an optical illusion. Fuck off with you.
Yes, anyway. That was our targeted comment to B.O.B. in this episode, So
no, not just him. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. You remind me of this because I posted something, because I rarely post on social media anymore, but I did post a thing.
You're doing very well.
There was a thing that I learned about, which was that Terrence Howard appeared recently on Joe Rogan's podcast. Sure. Which, of course,
of course he did.
But
and he's peddling math again, right?
Again, this happens every now and again, like once a year, once every couple of years. This keeps on happening. For those of you who don't know, Terrence Howard believes that 1 multiplied by 1 equals 2. He is convinced of this. He has made art and diagrams and models built around this concept, and he is utterly convinced that physics and math is wrong because of this underlying principle where we're doing math wrong, and 1 times 1 should equal 2 and not 1. Because in his words, multiplying by 1 does not change the value of 1, so therefore 1 has no value itself, because he doesn't understand what multiplication is. I am obsessed with this and his wrongness. I can't let it go. He is just a celebrity who is fundamentally wrong about a basic principle that is not in his field of expertise, and I cannot let it go how wrong he is. This will be one of the last thoughts I have before I die, is that Terrence Howard is wrong about 1 times 1.
Would you like to see your wife, Nick? Only if it's Terrence Howard, and I can tell him he's wrong.
I've annoyed Nicole so many times by talking about this. But I just like, anytime it comes up, I can't let it go. It's like, I have to talk about this with everyone who is at hand right now. It's
been a long thing too. This is not a recent development.
No.
Like when we
He's
say
been going
this,
on about this since like 2014 or 15. It's
I was
been
gonna
so
say
long.
he was still employed on what Empire when that was like a big show when this was going on. Like it was after Iron Man, I think that it came out, but
Yeah.
it was definitely while he still had like an active, like forward-facing career. So yeah, I mean, look, if it's the worst thing Terrence Howard ever does is have bad math, then that's the kind of like goofy celebrity that I'm like,
Sure.
yeah, sure, this is okay, I'll take it. But it is, I mean, it is very funny that he's still like he still is like, no, 1 times 1 has to be 2. I know it's been like a decade that I've definitely had like very
One
prominent
times one, which means it's actually been 2 decades at
Yeah.
this point.
Exactly. So like he's like, I know prominent mathematicians have definitely like come to try to point this out to me, but I am the only person that sees this.
There was a wild incident where he posted, when it was still Twitter, I think, like his like mathematical proof of it. And someone literally pointed out to him, this is the step where you do it wrong. Like you do the algebra wrong at this step.
Yeah.
You have misrepresented like the cumulative or associative property. And he was like, no. Because like, of course it wasn't that simple. Of course he's not going to change the beliefs
No.
because someone points out to him he's wrong. And I know I should accept that. I can't.
You should, and you should. I'll be quite frank, you shouldn't. This should be your hill to die on.
Oh man, my one hill,
Yeah.
which is my 2 hills. Yeah. So
We have a bunch of manga to
We
talk
do.
about, but before we even start talking about our regular recap manga, it is time for us to do the long-awaited review of Frieren at Journey's End, I think is the subtitle.
Beyond Journey's End.
Beyond Journey's End.
Yes, this is a series that has been running for actually not incredibly long. It's been in Shonen Sunday for a little over 4 years now, and it's taken off, especially since the anime started last year. The premise is that it is a fantasy series that follows an elven mage named Frieren, who is basically immortal. She has been alive for a very long time and was part of a group of heroes that did the fantasy adventure thing and saved the world. They beat the Demon King and saved the kingdom and stuff. And then afterwards, Frieren was like, yep, okay. You know, this is like, we've been on this quest for 10 years, which to her is nothing.
Yeah.
If you break it down, it essentially is like, in her lifespan, it's as if she was on this journey for a few months from a regular person's perspective. And so she goes off and, you know, she keeps on going about doing mage things and then meets back up with some of her old, you know, party members afterwards. And one of them, the hero Himmel, dies. He dies of old age, the way that people do.
The way humans do.
And when this happens and the surviving members, including Frieren, attend his funeral, she realizes, oh, this guy actually really meant a lot to me, because she's you know been very stoic the whole time, and then she just kind of like starts crying, and she's like, oh my god, like I really cared about this person, and I didn't really take the time to appreciate him because I just treated everything as if it was fleeting and didn't mean anything to me. And so after that point, she decides that she does need to learn more about the people that are in her life and appreciate them more, which basically just involves her just continuing to go on adventures. But she tries to make more of an effort in her next adventures to understand the people around her, even if they're never going to be around for as long as she is, even if they are around for a very minuscule period of time.
Yep.
Eventually she creates, and we kind of get a lot of time skips early on, because Frieren is so long-lived. These is kind of a, if nothing's going on, it's just not a years can pass and nothing really changes for her. Another member of her party, Haitier, has grown old when she sees him again, has a young girl who he is taking care of named Frieren. and he convinces / tricks Frieren into making Frieren her apprentice. And more time skips happen. High Tier dies. By that point, Frieren has seen that Frieren has potential, decides to take her on as an apprentice. They start adventuring together. Frieren grows up while adventuring with Frieren, and they eventually come across a warrior named Stark, who becomes kind of their vanguard type person. And the three of them are basically our core cast of characters through the rest of the series. And
There's another one that eventually joins up.
Okay.
Okay.
He's around for like 5 chapters. But so they go on adventures and they do stuff, and that is the basic plot. It is a fantasy adventure series that has a lot of emphasis on, as the title implies, what you do in all of the long period of time that comes in between / after your big grand adventure. There's a lot of meditation on like just life and what you do in it, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think anyone who has sort of played D&D before, especially like older versions of D&D where they very much emphasized like race age ranges as like a thing, has kind of like encountered this to some extent. Like I'm sure many people who played RPGs have played a longer lived race and have been like, ah yes, I have been a character who's been alive for 1,000 years or 400 years or whatever. You know, this is all based, I think, on what Tolkien originally just threw out there. So this is a thing that just kind of exists, but that is essentially the core premise of the series. It's just like, how do you like truly contemplate and process death and getting older and relationships when you're somebody who lives, you know, 10, 20, 30 times as long as most of your compatriots. And it is explored in a very like significant way early on, because like the first like volume and a half are all just sort of, here's this incident, here's this, that's where the biggest time jumps, as you said, happened. It's almost a little like anxiety inducing, because it'll be like, she'll be like, all right, well, I've spent 3 years in this town, it's time to move on to the next one. I'm like, wait, I'm sorry, what are you doing?
Time means nothing to her. She'll just spend time simply, like, while she's adventuring with Frieren and Stark, there will come points of at certain points where she's like, well, I guess we'll just wait here for a few years. And Farron's like, no, we can't do that. Remember, no, Frieren, remember, we can't do that. It'll take too much time, and we'll go, and us two will get old.
Like, this doesn't work. We have to get going, basically. I think there is a lot of poignancy in the early chapters as just Frieren is sort of confronted with this idea of like how to process these emotions, and particularly she realizes there's, I don't want to say unrequited love, but there were definitely some level of romantic feelings towards Himmel, and she didn't really get the chance to process them. And now she's kind of like thinking about it. And there are genuinely some very, very sweet little like sort of slice of life chapters that have to talk about passing on, legacy, you know, what we do for future generations, all these things that are very, very sweet and important. And it's, generally speaking, an extremely gentle series. Like, this is not a series with a ton of like high action, like high octane, crazy, you know, moments of stuff, but you know, it still, you know, creates like its tone. This is definitely like, hey, what happens to the adventurers after they defeat the Demon King? What happens next, essentially, whatnot, all that sort of stuff. And you know, they do jump into more things to do. They do run into situations, but it's not like, this isn't like a battle manga or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how to say this.
Okay, so I think that to start things off, I will say that in those moments, which are particularly frequent early on, where there's a lot of "and here is how the time passed" sequences, a lot of montages that just show like, okay, look, a lot of time is passing, and then you get a sequence of snapshots of like what Frieren and sometimes her fellow adventurers are doing in that time. And so there's just, you know, little tidbits here and there, like, and then she went here and she spent time with these people and helped fix this problem, and she was doing these errands and going into these dungeons to discover artifacts and stuff. And then, you know, because of that, you know, like time passes and like, oh, here is like her sequence with her, you know, teaching Frieren, who you can see getting older and growing up until eventually she's like, you know, taller than Frieren. Those are really cool moments, and it really gets you into the mindset of like, for this elven mage, time really does mean nothing. Like, she's just casually going about stuff. Like, it is essentially as if while you're seeing years pass in these montages, like, this is how I spent my day.
Yeah.
It has no effect on her, and that level of awareness and the portrayal of that is very effective. And it's not something you see a lot of series do, just because of the subject matter and the difficulty, of course, of, okay, well, how do you have, you know, like, every character, you know, age except for the main one, and like, you can't just keep on doing that. Then, especially as it gets to a point where Frieren has, you know, fairness, she's an adult, or she's a young adult as her apprentice. They've met up with Stark, and it's like, okay, these are our core cast now, and these two are humans. They don't have ridiculously long lives, so the amount of time that you can see, like, time passing is much more limited. You still get moments every now and then where it's like, okay, they're stranded in this horrible winter in this cabin. They can't leave and go anywhere, so time just passes while they're just waiting for the seasons to change. So you get that kind of moment of like, and this is what they did in that time. They're just, you get a visual of that. But then eventually the series has to transition into, okay, here is a much more traditional story of there's an obstacle that has to be overcome. Bad guys show up. We've got to fight them. There is, you know, a test that they have to pass so that a member of their party becomes a first-rank mage, so they get permission to go into this area and can continue their journey. And then you don't have the backbone of the series early on of showing the effect of time on Frieren and the seeming lack of effect of time on her, because it's just all in the moment stuff. And then the series becomes quite unexceptional. It's quite annoying to me, because if this were a series where it would be like these kind of things, the action, the comedy, all that stuff, if those were like above average, then all the stuff at the beginning of the series, which explores this thing that doesn't get shown very much in this type of series, would elevate it to the level of, this is a fantastic, amazing manga. But because that part of the story is just okay, then you're like, all right, stop doing this. Like, this isn't very good. Show me all the interesting stuff you were doing before.
It's odd, because I think I like it a little bit more than you do, but I am still in the same realm you are, which is just like, I eventually just like found myself uninterested in reading further. Like, there was just eventually came a point where I was like, I think I've kind of seen all I care to see. Like, there were eventually you just reach a point where you're almost just like scanning through chapters. You're like, I don't think I'm really even retaining anything anymore. Which isn't to say the series is bad or anything like that. I just don't think this is a series that I would read for this long. Like, this is, I think, 9 volumes or so right now, and I think it's still ongoing. So this is this is like a series that has a lot going to it, and at least to where I got to there were moments that I thought were really exciting. There was actually an arc where I was like, oh, is this where we do that twist and we do turn into a battle manga because they like go into a town? It's one of the first times we get like an ongoing story even in the
Right.
series. There's a moment of like, oh, like the next chapter follows up on the previous chapter. And it does it for a couple times, and it's all about can Farron and Stark defeat these very powerful demons because Frieren's not going to help them. She believes
Right.
utmost that they could do it. And I was like, this is actually kind of cool. There's interesting action going on. We get to know a little bit more about these characters. Like, I'm digging this. I'm enjoying this. This is like a good like start up to like what I thought we were gonna like spend more of our time doing. Then we just kind of transition more into like they go to a town. The town has some connection to Frieren in some way. Perhaps she visited there. Perhaps she knows somebody. Perhaps whatever. Something there. They'll do a little something. You could take a little lesson in it. There might be a little hint to her, relationship with Himmel and stuff like that. But like at the end of the day, I honestly think the biggest issue I had with the series is Frieren herself, who's just not particularly interesting to me. I guess, and this isn't me trying to say my version's better or anything even remotely close. I've played characters though in D&D games whose whole shtick is they're insanely long-lived. I don't making her so emotionally detached from everything is fine. The series does have humor. I don't quite understand what her humor is really supposed to be. It's kind of like random. Sometimes she like doesn't do anything unless she gets praised, which don't get me wrong. I was all about that. But then other times she's like kind of ribald. Like she can have like kind of crudeness to her that she doesn't recognize. Like there's a lot of jokes
Yeah.
about like, oh, I got this grimoire that lets you see through people's clothes. And she's not horny. It's not anything like that. It's just these weird kind of jokes that get brought up. I don't know. I just had like such a hard time enjoying following her journey eventually.
Yeah, there are certain things that kind of do stick out as being like kind of recurring things, recurring jokes in the series. And I am kind of there with you where I didn't really care for them. One of them is that Frieren has this attitude of like any treasure chest that she finds there's a chance that there is a fantastic grimoire with a new spell inside it, so she'll stick her head in everything, even if her 99% detection spell that can tell if the chest is actually a mimic is telling her it's a mimic. And she's like, no, I'm gonna try it anyway, and then she gets stuck in the mimic. It's like, okay.
Which might, honestly, that probably could be enough to be like a fun joke in and of itself. I just maybe just
But
don't care for the execution of humor in this series.
I think that the artwork in this series holds a lot of it back. There is a deadpan nature to this story. There's a lot of jokes where like there's like, well, you sure did that, and that can be funny, absolutely. I think that the problem I have is that everyone looks deadpan all the time. It's not just certain characters. Like, first of all, Frieren looks just kind of doesn't have a lot of range of emotion in how she is illustrated, which kind of makes sense. She is, the part of the point of her character is that she is immature despite her age and kind of detached from a lot of stuff. So she has her things that she likes, and she's also just very laid back about everything. The first person that is part of her party is Farron, who is also very stoic and understated, and like doesn't react emotionally to a lot of stuff. Terrible idea. Don't have that be your double act. Be the person who is understated and the person who's more understated. That's just not.
Yeah.
Stark helps to shake things up a little bit. He is easily like the wacky member of the group. He's the guy who's like, kind of the put upon, the butt of a lot of jokes and stuff. He messes up a lot, and he's upset when people get mad with him and everything. But even with him, like, there's not a lot to like sell the situations that he goes into. There's a little bit too much constraint in the way that that those situations are portrayed. And I feel like there's just not a lot to hammer home certain points that should be funny, should be heart pumping, should be, you know, intriguing, should be tense. It always just kind of feels like everything is like you're kind of floating along in terms of this stuff is happening, and then you see what happens afterwards, and then you see how it flows into the next thing, which is perfectly fine for when you're at the early stages of like they went on an adventure, they parted ways, Frieren went about her life and kept on going. People passed, she came to realizations. There's that style of storytelling and delivery where certain topics and certain beats make perfect sense and are done very well with that style. But if you're trying to go into like, and then he pulled out his mega super awesome sword and he cut through the bad guy and stuff, you don't want everyone to be making the same face as in all the times before, where they're just kind of like, and you don't want that same sense of like, and here's where the thing happens. You know, we want it to be, you know, really built up. Perception is reality. That is a theme of how magic works in this story, by the way, which is, you know, if you can visualize something, then you can make it happen. But if you're not giving me the chance to visualize this is a cool moment, this is a funny moment, this is an exciting moment, then I'm not going to think that your cool, funny, or exciting moments are those things. I'm going to find it to be, you're just kind of there. And it's frustrating. It's so frustrating.
I don't feel frustrated because I generally, I mean, look, this series is extremely popular. There are memes all about this all the time that I see everywhere. For people who are thinking I got this confused with Delicious in Dungeon, I have not. I know they have a similar fantasy vibe, but I have seen Frieren like memes out there. You know, I think a lot of people really enjoyed this, and I absolutely can see why. I think for me, I was hoping there'd be a bit more range to the series. It feels like it knows how to do like pathos and sadness pretty well, but it doesn't really know how to do suspense, maybe because Frieren herself is so like uber powerful that it's kind of hard to like give challenges to anybody, and that's fine. I enjoy a good power fantasy, but this really does feel like kind of the manga equivalent to like a farming simulator, like something you're not gonna like read through because you want to like be at the edge of your seat. You're like, I kind of just want to chill. I want to relax with my friends. Maybe I want to feel something because life is everywhere. But like, I don't need something crazy or whatever. But it might also have changed. I got about 40 chapters in, and I reached a point where I was like, it's actively like exhausting to try to read this for me right now. Like, I'm just not vibing with it whatsoever. So it might change monumentally later on. I have no idea what the current content is. They might be flying for all I know.
There's like some sort of secret society of, I can't remember exactly what's going on because I did not read the more recent chapters very closely, because basically after around the time when they were taking the exams was when I started checking out, because it felt like, okay, this is the big chance for this series to kind of prove me wrong. And there were certain characters that were introduced in that I did like. I like the two girls that are part of Frieren's exam team. The two baby lesbians that are. It feels like they are. But they were nice, but then they didn't really get fleshed out very much after that point. I do like Ubel, the kind of psycho member who was taking the class. Her whole thing was that she doesn't learn spells by like traditional means. Basically, she's like a sorcerer instead of a wizard, to put it in D&D terms.
Okay.
But the way that it goes about is she's also like a blue mage, So she learns magic by observing other people and picking it up off of them, by learning what they're feeling in order to
Sure.
be able to pull off that kind of magic, and that's cool. A cool thing. The I don't really understand why a fourth member was added to the group only for him to leave 5 chapters later. It just, I have to go somewhere else, and it's like, all right, okay. I mean, maybe that was just kind of the point. It's just like, to illustrate the idea of like, for Frieren, like people come and people go. So to show that she does not get attached to a lot of people. I'm not sure, but it felt like a waste of time to me because I didn't think that the guy's story was all that interesting. Although I did find it to have the one joke that I laughed at in the story, which was, so Sign, a cleric, they want him to join their group. So Stark goes and meets with him at a bar while he's playing cards, and Stark's like, "All right, well, if I beat you at this gambling game, then you have to join our party." And he's like, "All right, well, be careful what you wish for." And then Frieren and Frieren discover Stark, in an alley. He's lost like all his clothes and equipment in the gambling game, and they're like, "Oh man, you really fucked things up." And then Sign's there, and he's like, "Yeah, you really fucked things up." And he's also lost all of his clothes and equipment in gambling. That's a funny. That's
Sure. There are legitimately funny jokes in this. To give another example, there's a chapter, I think, where I don't even remember if it's supposed to be his birthday, but Frieren is just observing Stark as he's like cloud watching, and he's looking in the sky, and he's like, "Those clouds look like boobs." And like, if you look at it, it does actually kind of look like a woman's torso. But Frieren is like, "Oh, he's a pervert," which is honestly a joke they use a lot. There's a lot of just like pervert jokes for a series that's like almost puritanically chaste.
Yeah.
But like, she does that, but then he's like, "Oh, and that one looks like poop," and she's like, "Oh no, he's just an idiot. Like, he's just a child. He's not a pervert. He's just a young boy in a man's body." And then he's just like, "I can't wait to tell Frieren about this." She's like, why would I care?
He's so sweet. Like,
yeah, he's very earnest in all of his feelings. He's just like, "That cloud looks like boobs. That cloud looks like poop. I can't wait to tell my friend about it." And she's like, "You don't have to. I won't care."
I wish that there were more to sell. Like I wish the delivery of some of these jokes were the way that you have told that, though, because you have to keep in mind that filter all this through Frieren just going, That's like, just kind of like looking blankly the whole time. And if the entire point of the series were like, this is deadpan, it would be fine. But it's not quite there. It's not committed fully one way or the other. And that was what got me about this. I do think that there are certain points in the series where it's like, this is very like poignant. This is a great observation and a great twist on, the fantasy adventuring types of stories. When you look at it in terms of, sometimes there is like an obvious twist that is made, but it's made very simply and compellingly. So there's like, for example, when they first meet Stark, they're like, "Oh, there is this sword in this nearby cave. It's the hero's sword. No one can pull it out of the stone. No one could until Himmel came, and he took the sword, and so he was the hero who vanquished the Demon King." And then after they've like defeated the monster, that is the reason that Stark is still hanging around this town and stuff, because he's afraid of it. It's all his introduction stuff, whatever. The sword is still there, and it's like, yeah, Himmel was not, the destined hero who pulled the sword out. He was the legendary hero because he beat the Demon King.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't the great hero because he pulled some sword out of a stone somewhere. It's like, that's,
sure.
It's not the first time I've heard that kind of twist, but the way that it's done and the way that it's told in retrospect, and there's a twist there, is like, that's, a nice way of introducing it. Then there is, in that arc that you were talking about where they're in the town and there are these demons they're fighting, there's this demon lord who is leading this attack on this town, and she has a type of magic that lets her take control of someone's soul. The only requirement, it's like puppeteering magic of some kind. The only requirement for her to dominate someone is that she has to have more mana than them. So the entire time that she's going through, she's like, I'm going to, take control of Frieren, the Great Mage, who was part of the hero party that defeated the Demon King. And the entire time is like, so Frieren's going to have too much mana for her to take control of her then.
Yeah.
3 chapters before that moment happens. And then there's an entire chapter beforehand where they go into great length about how Frieren has been suppressing her mana her entire life.
It is.
I wonder what's going to happen here.
It is done as though it's supposed to be a surprise to us. And maybe like you have to recognize like sometimes manga is written for children, not like savvy adults who have been reading this genre for 30 years or whatever. But there was a moment I was like, I mean, obviously this chick's mana is going to be way more powerful than this fucking demon. It's like it'd be crazy to assume otherwise. She's so strong.
I think that the only twist that you learn there is like how old Frieren actually is. Because it's not just like, oh, she is a long-lived elf. It's she was alive for 1,000 years before she met Himmel's party. And then it's like, okay, at least you do learn something there, so it's not an entirely worthless twist.
Sure.
But there's a lot of stuff like that where the big moment is telegraphed, or the big joke is telegraphed. And that is why I say, like, the type of storytelling that this manga specializes in is in the pull back grand view of everything, see how everything changes over years and years across an entire world or across a person's entire lifetime, than it is in the more traditional like shonen action-y moments. But because the focus shifts into the shonen action-y moments more, it does feel like this is not these don't mesh.
Sure.
And I really wanted to like this more than I did. Which was I understand the appeal of it, but it's not paced in a way that I like it. Certainly not for reading it at the pace that I did. I also think that if you were reading this weekly, it would be a lot easier going down than the way we did it.
I think this is probably a series that reads a lot better weekly. I do want to say before I forget that Brala from our Discord knew that this was a German series, or it's not a German series, but the series has German character names. And neither of us are particularly great at German, so she spent a lot of time putting together a name guide for all these characters. And I believe Zombie also added their help as well. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to them as thank you for that. And, to the series, this isn't what I would not recommend to people. I think the series is great. I think people will enjoy this. I just don't think it's for me. This was a series that I looked at and I said, I'm glad I checked this out. I'm glad I read a little bit of it, but I don't think I'm going to think about this series too much more going forward. But I'm happy for other people who did. I think maybe I have a strange relationship to fantasy media at this point, particularly fantasy media that doesn't do anything different, that is very happy to just, coast on the tropes that have been established over a decade plus at this point, or about a decade plus, or about a century, I should say.
Century, yeah. Now who can't keep their timeline straight?
And I think that's fine. It's just, as someone who's played so much fucking D&D in her life, I'm very tired of the standard sorted board sorcery stuff, and for the series to kind of not do anything interesting with it and to not have a particularly interesting cast. It was one of those series where I was I think I would recommend strongly maybe the first volume or two to people, and then I kind of would be I would have felt fine wrapping it up then. I feel like she's learned more or less enough about humanity that I could put a fin to that story and feel satisfied.
Yeah, certain manga are that way, where it does feel well, you've kind of done all the development that I was interested in already.
Yeah, and I don't want to say that as like that is the active solution this series should take.
No.
It sounds like a lot of people really enjoy this series and
Yeah,
everything
don't mess
it's
with
done.
the successful formula.
Yeah, I am not. It's just that's what I would have like probably preferred it as like a short run kind of thing. But other people really like it, and I will keep this in mind as I recommend series to people. Be like, yeah, I know this person likes fantasy a lot. Be like, hey, have you ever checked out Frieren? I think you'd actually kind of dig that, or whatnot.
All right, so guys, we have other manga to talk about today.
So many manga.
So we should get into that. We're gonna start with My Hero Academia, chapter number 426, The Hellish Todoroki Family Final. This is our 5th to last chapter of My Hero Academia.
Final 5.
Yeah. And a big thing happens in this, which is that we see that, to follow up on how the previous chapter ended, the Todoroki family have gathered together to speak with Dabi in his prison, where he is, yes, alive after everything. I do like that you get a chance to see that, oh yeah, they all were, surrounded by a horrible fire. And it kind of does go by degrees of like how long they were around the battle between Endeavor and Dabi. So Endeavor is entirely bandaged up and in a wheelchair. Rei has pretty significant burn scars across her face, and then Fuyuki and Natsuo have got off with the most minor burns. They're still clearly like have some bad ones, but they're less obvious on their faces. Shoto is the last of the family to arrive, and they're told by a guard, they're like, okay, yeah, you can talk to him, but only for a few minutes a day, because he is slowly dying. And Dabi is in a restraint that is also clearly some sort of advanced iron lung thing that is helping him to breathe, and he's just covered everywhere in... He's barely there.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw what happened to his body in the fight. The fact that he is alive is, ridiculous. So he starts to, make some sarcastic remarks, starts coughing, understandable. And so Endeavor says, we're going to tell you what comes next, Toya. I'm retiring from hero work. And he says, I was going to do that after the war was over, but now I can't even stand up on my own. He is bound to the wheelchair. Of course, he's got one arm at this point after his encounter with All for One. And he says, the Endeavor the hero is dead and burned away. Your flames were fiercer than any I've ever faced. Dabi makes more sarcastic remarks. And he says, all right, well, just quit playing nice, coward. But Endeavor says, well, you know me well. You've kept a close eye on me. You only ever wanted me to watch you, and I never did. People can say what they like. The fact is, that's my hell flame burning inside you. I watch the video of you denouncing me every day. So from now on, I'm going to come here every single day to talk with you. And there is briefly a shot of them as if they were not fully healed, but like not mummies.
Covered in band. Yeah. Yeah, that's the best way to say it.
So he says, like, look, I know it's too late, but let's talk.
What song plays over this? I'm thinking Too Late to Apologize. Oh, wow. Okay, that's a good one. I was thinking Too Late to Apologize. Wasn't that Timbaland and One Republic or something like that?
Why would I know that, Quinn?
I mean, you grew up at the same time I did. Like...
Yeah, but I didn't listen to that kind of music.
Okay. Fair enough. Leave me in the dust. All right, Nick. What Ailstorm song would you put over this scene?
This is too sad for that. What was it? Yeah, it was from 2007. By that point, I was not listening to any of that.
Weren't you in high school or just graduating? Like, Wasn't it?
Yeah, I was listening to metal by the time I graduated high school.
I know. So was I. I was generally listening to like rock and stuff like that, but like you still like it. Like,
I saw the memes. I'm aware of the song.
So you're aware. That's all I need is that you know of the song.
But I wouldn't know who sang it.
I mean, doesn't everybody know One Republic, Nick? When you get right down to
yes, now that they're the Kaiju number 8 ending theme singers.
It all wraps up. It all comes together.
Oh God. So Dabi's heart rate starts to elevate. So this speech of Endeavors is having an effect on him clearly. But Endeavor says like, "Hey, come on, we've got to use the time that Shoto bought us here to have it together. And if you hate me, then fine, but speak your mind. Go on." And so Fuyuki and Ray both say like, "Look, I want to talk to you. I've got so much to talk about." His heart rate increases, and so the guard's like, "Okay, look, you push him too hard at this point. You can come back tomorrow." But Shota says, "Okay, look, I've got one question. What's your favorite food?" And there is silence for a minute. So they're told, "All right, you can come back later." But as they leave, Toya says, "Soba." Aww. He likes Soba just like his little brother does.
Yeah.
And Shota just turns and looks at him and with wide surprised eyes, and he says, "Yeah, same here."
They're connecting, Nick.
Yeah. Toya lies thinking about how he, was like convinced that they were never going to like have anything to do with each other, basically. And he starts crying tears of lava, it looks like, because those are very weirdly colored tears. It's gotta hurt to cry at this point. Everything's gotta hurt.
Who knows if he even has tear ducts anymore? Like, I truly don't know what humanly remains of this person, because the last time we saw him, I thought he was just basically like a skeleton with a brain.
As they leave and Toya's left alone, he just says, "Shoto, I'm sorry." So he has some regrets, it would appear.
Sure.
I love the continuation of this as the Todorokis all leave and are outside of the prison facility, as Natsuo turns to everyone. He says, "All right, so I'm done. Dad, you're still a dick.
Yeah.
I'm gone."
Catch this family later.
He's like, my girlfriend and I are gonna go get married, and we're not.
You're not coming.
Wedding. You're not coming.
Yeah.
You're not gonna be there. And
you won't get to ever see her. You are never going to meet my wife.
Fuyumi, by the way, not Fuyuki. I was getting her name wrong. And so he's like, "Yeah," and there says, "Yeah, sorry, I understand." He's just at the full.
He's very much like fair enough.
Yeah. Fuyumi says that she quit her job, and she says, "Yeah, one of my students' mothers said she got me a new job, and she can help me out." Natsu basically tries to say to the rest of the family, like, "Guys, we did the thing that we were bound to do, the thing we had to do. Also, punishment's been doled out as well. So aren't we? Can't we all just be done with this?" And Endeavor's like, "Look, I'm going to be making amends. I'm going to be apologizing for the rest of my life, whether all of you are around to see it or not. And I'm going to also shield all of you from the fallout as best as I can. If that's a reason that I survived all this, then that has to be it."
Sure.
Yeah. And so Natsuo does say like, "Well, that sounds like shit," and Endeavor's like, "Yeah, it has been, because since I, answered Toya's challenge, since I took him up on his offer to tango." And Natsuo very slowly like, "I've never really thought of you as a badass until right now." This is something. He's like, "All right, yeah, that's gonna okay." Yeah,
damn, you have a lot of dedication.
Natsuo offers to drop his siblings off at their places, and Shoto's getting in the car. He calls to his parents and says, "Look, I'm gonna be okay because my classmates are gonna be there for me, and I'll become the man that I want to be." Aw. Shoto's gonna be okay. He came out of this horrible family, and he's gonna be okay.
All right, now Nick, what song plays as he's getting in the car?
What's it? Highway Star by Deep Purple.
It's a good one. He's driving off, like, catch you faces later. I was gonna say Kids in America. That's always my go-to.
So little to do with the situation.
I feel like anything with like a young kid should end with Kids in America. It should just be this song that plays over the credits. I don't care what it is. It could be The Room. And I would still be like, yeah, the little kid got out of there. Kids in America, wow!
Just like play the song while Tommy Wiseau is breaking stuff.
I meant Room, by the way, not The Room. It's very unfortunate those two movies have the same similar names. The one where the child escapes the room, basically.
Gotcha.
I just constantly, Kids in America should always be playing at the end of something. If not, then like This Is Where Breakfast Club, Don't Forget About Me should come on.
What's that horror movie that came out a couple years ago where the guy's like the guy hears the voices of the past victims through the phone?
Black phone? Black something.
It is the Black Phone, yes. Okay. Just that bit where he, where he kills the bad guy at the
I was gonna say another great moment where Kids in America could play. This is look, I'm gonna throw it out there. I don't even know who
Honestly, that might be the most appropriate of these suggestions so far.
I don't even know who sang Kids in America. Kim Wilde. I do not know if she is doing anything, but like, let's fucking license that song anytime there is a movie with a child in it in some fashion, and presumably the child lives. It'd be kind of dark otherwise.
So not the boy in the stripe, not like the boy in the striped pajamas. We're not going to do that.
Sophie's choice. She makes a choice. Kids in America. Wow. I'm like, well, this is a toad. But yeah, I just license it. I feel like this is just, it's a clear, easy way. We should, as a country, be able to unite on these things.
Oh, man. Endeavor's people from his agency come to pick he and Ray up. And she flashes Endeavor his phone because Hawks is texting them saying, like, hey, let me know if you need anything. Just kind of a night giving the idea of like, look, even though Endeavor is going to be fucked up and paying for all of his past mistakes and stuff, he also has people watching out for him even after everything.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Hawks, we cut to him. He is looking swanky, and he is conned to visit Nagant, who is in prison, and she made it. She's still alive after everything.
She is. She has significant scarring from, I guess, getting out of bed after exploding and then trying to shoot a gun. But I'm not gonna lie, she's looking fucking great. She's looking really, really good. So good on you.
For someone who exploded, yeah. So Hawks is like, what? They said that you were free to go. And she says, yeah, but look, the outside world is, a scary place for me. Like, someone could come in, try and exploit my skills to turn me into a horrible assassin again. I can't let that happen. Hawk says, I wanted your help on some things. And Nagant's like, Izuku Midoriya demonstrated something to the world that day, but how will society receive it? How will things change? I'm not leaving till I see how it all pans out. Which I guess is a way of saying, like, things are going to be shaky right now. There are going to be some forces at play. I'm not going to be a pawn in the power struggle,
sure.
Basically.
And I do like this reasoning that she's just like, look, I understand the big bad guy is gone, but, like, the systems that put me where I was are still in existence. So we're going to see how that all shakes out before I start popping out of here. Plus, I get to eat every day. Like, I don't have to pay for my food.
Yeah. We follow Hawks after that, but before we do, there's just a brief 3-panel interlude where Labrava and Gentle get to be back together because yay. So yeah, thanks to helping out in the final battle, Gentle is free to go, and he and his partner are reunited. It's so sweet.
I hope they get a whole chapter devoted to them.
How wild would that be? We've got so many characters to cover.
Because these two are like the best. Look, I accept. I am gonna get like maybe a panel shot of Gang Orca being like he's the 11th best hero. Like he doesn't even make the top 10 or whatever. And I'm just gonna have to sit there, arms crossed, like just sourpuss the girl fucking after Randy Orton win the title, like or Miz won the title, whatever the fuck it was. Just like.
I wonder what she's up to.
But I hope she's doing great.
Yeah.
That'd be great. She's like, ew, wrestling? She's adamantly against it now.
From what I remember, she was like a producer's kid or something like that. And they cut to her because they knew she was a fan of Randy Orton because she was a producer's kid. So they knew to cut to her for a reaction. So good on them. Sure. It's gonna be so funny. We'll annoy this little girl.
All right, let's see. Angry Miz Girl now. Oh, this is like 3 years later.
No,
or 3 years ago.
Okay. That's
nah, she's being interviewed. I think she's just a fucking teenager at this point. It hasn't been that long, yeah.
It's been about 13 years. 14? Whatever. Anyway, so Hawks gets the message back from Endeavor saying like if I need your help, I'll ask. I like how it's like he can't text so good. And then Hawks gets in contact with someone else, Mr. Mara, and we see that somebody is visiting Spinner, who also has survived the final battle. But we cut away before we find out who is visiting him, and that's where we end the chapter. It looks like we're gonna get a lot of just like, and here's what happened to this character and this character and this character.
Sure. I mean,
all for that though.
Yeah, the series has had a lot of very important characters, a lot of significant relationships, a lot of development. It's one of those things. It's like, look, we haven't had a chance to resolve those things. So many of those things were at stake during the final fight. Rather than cram it all together, you know, have one final chapter where this entire sequence of like Endeavor and Dobby would have been like maybe a page or something like that. Let's do a full chapter and explain it to everybody, all that sort of stuff. Like give the stories that we want to focus on some time to breathe.
By the way, in a comment in Endeavor's texts, he refers to Hawks as Mr. HPSC President. So, which is the Hero Public Safety Commission. So it seems as though he is going to be running the commission that he was a soldier for, which means that changes are probably on the way for that.
Yeah.
But we'll see if there is more follow-up on that or not. And what's going on with the rest of the surviving members of the League of Villains here.
Yeah, let's.
Well, we got a lot more time to talk about.
Tons of series. Let's jump in real quick to Undead Unluck. This is number 212. Live at Live or Live at Live or any combination there within. I have no idea how to pronounce that, unfortunately.
All I know is I want this poster.
It's very nice.
Very great.
Very colorful. So we open in a little flashback as Karuru is talking to Keita. And it's just like, this is back when she was headhunted and Keita was not headhunted, essentially. And she's like, look, I can convince them to bring you along too. And Keita's like, look, I'm not skilled enough. Don't worry about me. And she's like, no, you don't understand how talented you are. You're the only person who can be my side. And she's like, no, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to stay where I am. And when I get to stand by your side, it's going to be on my own merits. Plus, I have the feeling that if I stay where I am, I'm going to come across something really special. So we cut to the present. The final round is about to begin. Union against, I think, Crusade is the name of Karuru's group. And Karuru's group. And she contacts Indicator.
It's a pun.
Oh, is it?
Kurusu, Crusade.
Oh. Only the Spookmaster General could have come up with that.
What?
Well, they would have been like, boo,
no, I still have 3 months, Quinn. No.
Kaboo-boo. Look, damn, I should have saved that one. So she's talking with Kata and is basically like, all right, for the final song, let's just do one song together, basically, and we'll alternate the lines, and we'll let the fans be the judges. You assembled this group at the last moment,
we'll do versus mode and Guitar Hero, where you switch off who's playing.
Essentially, yeah. And she's just like, you know what? Since your group doesn't even really know how to do it, like, why don't you and I just go one-on-one? And Kata's just like, no, they memorized that song. I had a feeling you'd propose this. Cut over to Reita, who is feverishly finishing something up, wrapping something up in an envelope. And he's like, all right, I'm free. But damn it, once I mail this, it's an hour by cab. I'm not going to make it. And we can see Sean previously in the background watching him. And he just says from out the window, oh, you will. And in the next shot, he is now visible and he's writing on Kipta-un. And he says, so long as you're a good guy, that is. And
what a great entrance. That's it would have been perfect to cut away at that point, but that's just such a good entrance. Like, as long as you're a good guy, it's like,
It's very cool. And also, it's just cool seeing Sean just like relaxing on the cloud like that. It's very cool. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Reita gets on, and he's of course marveling. He's like, "Oh my God, is this Kipta-un?" Just like, yeah, I guess an author would probably know all about this. And he's just like, "Look, I don't know if we're gonna make it in time, but you need to put your feeling into it. You really want to see this show, right?" And Reita's like, "Oh yeah." So the cloud goes a lot faster. Wow, great to know. So the two groups are performing. They're doing their back and forth lines. Essentially, it's the debut song that they did together. And
Love Die,
yes. Pretty fucking dope song. And Reita is there. They make it in time. He's able to see the performance, but as he's looking, he's starting to see some of his memories replaced, of seeing Kata in the maid cafe. Instead, it's Kururu. And Sean's like, are you sure about this, Fuko? He is definitely going to fall under Unchaste spell, and that spell's doomed for you. As the actual performance is going on, Kururu is thinking to herself, I'm more talented than Kata, like slightly. So that gap is just going to widen. This should be fine. And then she looks over, and for one of the lines of Kata's, she shares it with Latla. And Kururu's like, you're an idiot. Like, you have so few lines during the song. Why would you give one of them to a stand-in?
Cut in half.
So, yeah. So she's like, you're trying to mock me, aren't you? Like, it really fires her up. But then Soul contacts her and is just like, who gives a shit? Let her do whatever she wants. We had a deal. Do it. And he's just like, look, Reita, he's up in the sky. Shoot him with Unchaste. And she's like, oh, in the sky, the Union members' souls, like, all that sort of stuff. He's just like, look, just fire a shot. Just concentrate all of it into one shot. It doesn't even matter if you have the rest of them. If you do this, that's what you need to focus on. And she's like, no, I don't need to do anything like that. I can make a guy like him eat out of my palm easily. And Soul's like, you have misunderstood our arrangement. This wasn't like a request from me to you. Kata is already kind of
You don't understand.
Yeah.
I have steepled my fingers.
Yeah. I don't think you understand.
I am sitting cross-legged wearing a nice suit and am steepling my fingers while making an emotionless face.
Yeah.
You will do what I tell you to do.
I have requests to make of you. This is the request-making pose. He's basically like, look, Kata's already kind of figured out how to control souls unconsciously, and you managed to, figure out the gap between you before even your negation ability is activated, which is great. But to close that gap, you borrowed a substantial portion of my soul. I'm calling the shots here. And if you won't do what I ask, then I'm just going to make you do it. And you can see that there's a moment of Kururu trying to, struggle before, she fires off this gigantic soul beam up at Reita. And Fuko's like, oh, we've got to do something. When I give the signal, you got to give it everything you've got. Pour it into that special crush. And she gives her big line, and she fires off, and another beam is coming. They're going to intersect before it gets to Reita. And Fuko's like, yes, this is going to work. They're going to cancel each other out. And there's a smile from Kata, and then Kata's beam explodes and showers down over the entire audience. And Karuru is looking and she's like, what the fuck? She made it scatter. Why? And Fuko's just kind of smiling. She's just like, oh, Mom. And Reita gets hit with Unchaste. You know, that was a direct hit. It's a complete blowout. Unison loses 100 to 1. Not a single person.
Literally everyone who voted for Crusade.
Yeah. And Fuko is like vanishing. She is starting to disappear. But we don't go to that. We immediately go to Akane, who's like, Karuru, are you okay? And she's like, you just lost and you're trying to console me? Like, this is very typical of you. And she's like, yeah, well, you're just not, you know, acting like yourself. And man, we really did lose, didn't we? But I have no regrets about it. And Reita flies down. He's like, oh my gosh, that was the greatest performance ever, Kata. This is so great. I came too late to get a scoring button, but you were amazing.
He would have voted for you. That's so sweet. He would have voted for us. Very sweet.
Yeah. And Karuru's like, wait a minute. Why isn't my Unchaste working? And she's like, there had to be a moment where you felt swayed by me, didn't you? And Kata or Reita is like, yeah, I mean, I guess for like a moment, but you know, I would know the idol that I first fell in love with would never just sing for one person. And once I remembered that, I saw her performance and I knew she was the one. So no matter who she is or who she's with, she's the kind of idol that always has fun with everyone, and she does it with a smile on her face. And we can see it, you know, flashing back to even just earlier this chapter where she shared a line with Latla. She wasn't there to win. She was there to have fun with everybody. And he's like, that's what I love about you. And Fuko is not fading away anymore. She has been, you know, completely restored, essentially, because they're going to fuck any second now. Maybe tonight. They're going to fucking knock that baby up. And Fuko's like, all right, like, I'm fine. Everything's good. Let's get going. And Akane tries to turn to, like, say, like, thank you, but they're already flying away. This is something I didn't realize until my second read-through. They just kidnapped Karuru.
They've got her bound and gagged.
I got to the, like, I was looking at the last panel, and I was, like, going through, I was recapping, I just didn't notice the first time that, yeah, they have, like, Fuko has grabbed Karuru and has her over her shoulder with a gag on. I was like, this is an extreme way. I understand why they couldn't have her, like, saying something or whatever, but I'm just, like, I would just look at it and be like, I don't know. There might be different ways to handle that, but all right.
Well, and presumably they also know that something is up with her because of the way that she was behaving, and she, you know, forcefully took control of the members of Union. Yeah. So presumably this is because they know, like, well, she's not just going to come along quietly.
Sure, so I guess it is. I was almost just like, I kept.
We got to take her back home and deprogram her after this.
In my mind, I was just looking. I was like, was there like a panel where someone like sneaks up behind her and like bonks her on the head or something? Like, nah, Fuko just like fucking in a single movement just handles everything. It's very amusing.
Yeah. It goes by very quickly. Like, you don't even see, like, when it happens exactly. They're just kind of, like, one moment they're all standing next to Kaede, and Kurusu is right there next to Raita and Kaede. And then when Kaede turns around, they're like, thank you so much for everything. I don't know your name. How did we get here? What's going on? What was I about to say? Yeah. So their presences have been completely erased from Kaede and Raita's minds. And also Karuru just vanished. Like, she vanished from right beside them. So a lot of stuff happened very quickly. I like that you can see certain details while they're on Kidun. Like, Latla is teasing oh gosh, I've forgotten his name. Rip. That's why. I kept on wanting to say Slice. I'm like, that's not his name.
It's something very similar. You were actually pretty close.
So there's, you know, little things going on. Billy's with his kid and stuff. So it was like, oh, a happy ending. In a way, I feel like this didn't really give me what I wanted after I saw the end of the last chapter. I feel like, look, it was very important, obviously, that we conclude this whole thing that involved Fuko's parents and making sure that they get together by focusing on them getting together. focus having time where Sean goes and gets right and brings him over, have the danger of like, oh, he's going to be taken over by Unchaste and stuff. But that takes so much attention away from the novelty of having this idle performance with the members of Union, which seemed to be the big thing of like, hey, read the chapter. Don't you want to see how fun this is going to be? That falls into the background so heavily amidst all of this. And I feel like if you would be taken a little bit more time in this sequence, make this 1 chapter, 2 chapters or something like that, then you would have gotten to have both of those things. It's kind of one of the things that is a shortfall of having a pace as relentlessly quick as Undead Unluck tends to be, is that sometimes you get to a situation where it's like, oh, I want everything to take its time and spend a little bit of time in this fun situation. It's like, no, we're going to move on. We got to keep on.
There's a lot of expedience that it's like, ah, dang. I kind of wish like the end of the chapter was that Sean moment, or the Unchaste like shot or something like that, and that we did get like a chapter just focus more on this competition. Not that I was like inherently super interested in the competition, but it did feel like we like imported like 10 characters into this arc for them to essentially do nothing. Like
we had all that focus at the end of the previous chapter of like, okay, Fuko and Latla and Julia and Mui are gonna be, are gonna be Kaede's backup singers. How are they gonna, react to this? Because all of them are having like these very different reactions. You can see that they're different levels of nervous and excited and stuff. And all that we get to see is Latla has one line with Kaede, and then the rest of it is Fuko standing next to Kaede. So what really was the point other than, and they are going to be part of the performance that you will not see? It's frustrating.
Sure. Yeah. It's not perfect, but I still was enjoyable. I'm not going to give it chapter of the week or anything like that, but I was pretty okay with it. And we have a lot of series, so I'm just going to move us on to Blue Box 155. Could it be?
Could it be? Yusa lost in the Nationals tournament. He lost in the finals, it seems. And he's, just kind of like pouting on a bench after the fact. So Taiki comes and is like, hey, you dropped your jacket on the floor here. Also, you shouldn't be just like sleeping here. And Yusa says, I wasn't sleeping. I was thinking about my matches and how I could have, played better. And then I got sleepy. Just admits to falling asleep, basically. He also saw Haruyu and Nishida's match before. He's like, yeah, that was a good game that Haruyu played. And I wonder if we'll be able to play like that next year. Taiki admits that, yeah, he was really excited to get to go to Nationals. And he says, now that I'm actually here, I didn't get to win once. So I can only see my shortcomings. And so even though I made it this far, all I have are regrets. And so I can't imagine what kind of play I would be satisfied with. And yeah, he agrees. He says, there's always something to learn in badminton. There's always someone better than you. And I think the people who view that as happiness can keep fighting. And he gets up and goes to leave. Before he gets too far away, Taiki hesitates for a second. And he says, the person better than me is you, Yusa. So I'm going to win. And that's my idea of happiness. And Yusa turns and looks at him. He turns away and he says, I'm just going to do what I always do. All right, Mr. Cool.
Sure. But he also throws this line in there about like, but you got to be careful because the same goes for you, Taiki. We see Haruto?
Haruto.
Yeah.
Haruto. So it's going to be interesting in the future as we continue to follow this badminton thread.
Sure.
Next year, Taiki is going to be a third year, and Haruto is going to be the second year trying to do to him what Taiki did to Haruyu. Swipe ahead of him and take his place. So that's going to be a different challenge, and it's nice to have that reflection of like Taiki's going to be an upperclassman before you know it, and then the entire dynamic's going to change. The entire badminton club go out for a meal at an okonomiyaki place.
There you go. Wow, that's a big word.
It's a very fun word to say because of the the way the syllables play off each other and stuff. So they're all hanging out. Also, Karen is there too. Just Karen and like nobody else's significant others or family members or friends or anything. So they all like, toast and they're getting food and everything. And then Nishida decides to make a little speech. And he says, I want to thank you all for coming to watch me on this occasion. You were part of a pairs team. Shut up. But like they immediately get distracted because Kyo is making really, really good looking okonomiyaki. And they're like, oh my god, it looks so good. It's so tasty. And Nishida's like, it's all going to be the same when it ends up in your belly. I bet Haru could do that too. Haru is awful looking. It's completely fallen apart. And it's like, that's always, nice when like the perfect person in the club is incompetent at something, anything. It was one of the great things about Shin in Aisho 21, which was just, he can't do technology.
And it would just explode.
Explode it. It's even though it's very cartoonish, it's also very humanizing to have that kind of plot.
And I like that they're like, oh, you don't know how to handle it. So Karen's like, don't worry, I'll get it. And then she starts and she's like, it's just like, they're like, oh, neither one of these two is good at this. This is a huge glaring weakness for both of them.
This perfect ideal couple, and then they can't do this one thing. Ayame can do it perfectly, and then she does this very cute little decoration on it with the sauce, and the cute little decoration makes Taiki think of the ketchup decoration that Shinatsu made of him, and immediately the person sitting across from him is like, "You're thinking about your girlfriend, aren't you? I saw you smile." It's like, no, I wasn't at all.
Worth noting, who is sitting right behind them, Taiki's parents.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yep.
So they are. It's just, like, it's very easy to do a sequence like this badly, where it's just like, and they all hang out and they have fun together. But this has a very, like, they're hanging out, they're being stupid kids, having fun at a special event where they're going to a restaurant together.
I think a lot of people can recall those, like, years as a teenager where you just did, like, special events and you just had like a good time or something like that, whether it was school related or sports related or whatever it might be, just those moments where you got to be out with friends that you're just like, dang, like I envy that. And you like reading this, you're like, dang, I am nostalgic for those days a little bit.
A fond memory I have from high school is because I was in the math club, and one year we hosted a competition where like other schools came, and we were in charge of like, getting students their tests and stuff. It all did not go very well. Like it was, there was poorly organized stuff. Like the scoring machine wasn't working and everything. And so the president of the club was feeling really down the dumps afterwards. And then he was like, you know what, fuck it. We're all going to go to Olive Garden after this.
Hell yeah.
And we all, like, that's the first time I drove on the highway, actually, was to get there. My mom was upset when she learned that I had driven on the highway because I had only just started driving on my own at that point. So it's just like a small thing like, hey, a bunch of teenagers, like, we did a thing, we're going out to eat afterwards, and it's like our little sample of like doing adult things without our parents kind of thing. It's a very special feeling. This is a great depiction of that.
Yep, really, really good.
And they all kind of start to get like nostalgic about certain things that happened. Like when Shida was like in his first year, he had all this sauce on his curry and everyone was so grossed out. And then he was the sauce guy for a while. We would tease him that he should drink sauce for electrolytes. And then the coach joined in and he brought a liter of sauce to the training camp. And the coach like resentfully turns around and says like, it was a joke. It's like...
To be clear, I'm not hazing you. It was supposed to be like a silly little gag.
And they like give advice to the first years in the club, like, don't do anything weird. That will follow you.
Yeah, don't fuck up now or you're going to get a nickname for the rest of your life.
Just such a very real thing. And Haru, is, like sitting there being kind of contemplative. And then everyone kind of turns and looks at Karen because she's crying. And she's like, I was just thinking because you guys have been getting along so well and how these 3 years have been so much fun. And it's like, yeah, and now, yeah, I guess it's over.
Karen's
she is like,
in college, right? Isn't she like a year older than Haru?
I can't recall,
Okay.
honestly. But Nishi is like, hey, it's not over yet. We haven't graduated yet, so we're gonna hang out at practice now and then. Even after we graduate, we can still get together like this. I want you guys to be my friends for life. We can talk about what's going on in our lives and all that good stuff. This isn't the end. A.a.'s boys badminton team is forever. And everyone kind of like, it's just kind of like,
oh, it gets no reaction. I would have put my head on the stove at that point.
And then Haru says, I want to get out of this atmosphere immediately. Just I'm gonna leave this all behind me and never look back.
I'm so ready to stop doing this.
And they're like, "Oh man, yeah, I want to see. I love it when Nishida's one-liners fall flat and Haru has a deadpan response. And Nishida's like, "Hey, we should switch. I should be the straight man. You be the funny guy." And Haru's like, "No, I don't. This isn't a thing.
I don't see us as a duo like that. By the way." And I do like how they, like, kind of point out to, like, all right, Taiki, Kyo, you guys gotta start doing it. And, like, you're just looking at it, you're like, neither one of these two is silly or wacky. I can't.
No,
it would.
They can't be Nishida.
If either one of them was silly and wacky, I would immediately assume that, like, a villain has body double snatched them. Like, that's that moment, like, oh, like, Brainiac's taking over your body. I get it. Or something like that. Like, something's up.
Kyo shows up and just starts doing weird one-liners. Everyone's like, Kyo! Time passes, everyone goes home. Taiki immediately collapses when he gets through the door, just is on, like, the step leading in, face down on the floor. And Chinatsu, greets him and his parents as his dad comes in. And his dad says, like, go to sleep in your room, Taiki. And Chinatsu, just kind of looks at him, like, oh, he had a big day. And Taiki's dad looks at her, and then he pauses for a second, and he says, Chinatsu, you going out with Taiki? So, oh boy!
Uh-oh. Yeah, it's very interesting because we did say that this something along this line would probably happen, but we expected it to be the mom because that's who got the focus during it. The arc was very much like, it wasn't like dad does nothing, but it was very much like, let's hear it for the moms, do. And dad just happened to be there, but I do like that he's the one confronting it, like, are you dating my son?
One of those like,
how do I approach this?
Topic?
You guys dating? Just like pointing between her and Taiki on the floor. You guys a thing?
Is the kid still text in class? Is that a thing that happens?
Oh, that would be great. He just asks some lame ass fucking adult shit. He's just like, hey, Chinatsu, what does cap mean? Like, if someone says no cap, but they're already not wearing a hat, like, what does that mean?
Does that Daniel boy still wear nice shoes? She's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
What the hell are you talking about? Do the kids still wear Nickies? Nickies or... Because I think I'm getting a pair, but I didn't want the kids to laugh at me.
I really like this chapter. It's just very nostalgic, and then with an unexpected development right at the very end that is more surprising because of how underplayed it is, and really makes me look forward to how this is going to get played off. Like, is she going to try and deny it at first, and then have to confront Taiki afterward, or is she just going to be like, yeah, I'm not going to deny it. I'll just, I guess, fucking tell him because he knows. We'll see, and we'll then have to see how that affects the parental situation as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, she's not going to be staying at the house that much longer. They're in winter already, or coming up on winter.
They're coming up on winter of last year.
She's got a couple more months or so.
Yeah. We'll see.
Yep.
Oh man.
Let's talk about the chapter everyone wants to discuss.
Chapter 170 of Chainsaw Man.
It's the chapter on everybody's heads. I mean, mine's.
Oh man. It's enough to give you a no. So, chapter 170, how to eat sushi. Barham has shown up at the sushi place and just very casually just demanded that Denji fight off all of the public people trying to arrest him, but first eat your sushi. Yeah. We're at a sushi place, you should enjoy your sushi. And so he's like, do things in the proper order. It's better if you start with the light toppings. And Denji first tries to say, go to hell. He's like, oh, no. If you disobey, you don't get to see Nayuta. So Denji bare hands, the most feral way you could eat sushi, which is saying something because it is kind of finger food. Like, it should not be that hard to eat sushi.
I mean, he is cramming it into his hands and then into his mouth, but it is wild how the consistency turns to, like, fucking, like, oatmeal as soon as he grabs it.
Does not break eye contact with Barham while he's doing it, too. And Barham's just like, all right, next is Squid. And he wolfs it down. And he's like, no! You can't savor the sushi if you eat it like that. Leave it on your tongue for a while. And Denji's just smashes all the dishes off the counter in front of them. Finally, someone makes a comment about this asshole being there.
Someone's finally like, hey, Denji seems upset.
Yeah. Fami's just like, food's still here. Nothing's wrong.
She's just zeroed in.
So Denji says, look, if I kill all the public safety guys outside, will you take me to see Nayuta? And Barham says, like, hey, calm down. You know, listen, those guys don't want to kill you either. All the public safety really wants for us, actually all we all want is to use a teeny little bit of Chainsaw Man's power. He even cups his fingers together. Just a little bit of it.
Just a wee little bit.
And so Denji's like, all right, so I'll turn to Chainsaw. He's like, no, listen. There's a proper order to these things. We need you to transform into proper Chainsaw Man. We need a Chainsaw Man with the power to erase devil names from existence itself. And I love the weird talking about that they have here, because Denji's like, chainsaws don't do that. They just cut down trees. And Barham says, well, hypothetically, it could be that chainsaws originally had many uses.
Sure.
But after they erased so many things, maybe cutting down trees was the only one that remains. All right, sure.
I guess, yeah. There, you got me there.
So he keeps on forcing Denji to eat, and then he says, to fully become Chainsaw Man, you need two things. Everyone's fear and your unhappiness. Chainsaw Man's status as a superhero really made that a pain for us, but now he is an everyday object of fear on par with aging and sickness. Now, time for some deluxe fatty tuna! And he calls over to the chief of the sushi place and says, send it down the belt. And we cut to people in the restaurant seeing what's being sent down the conveyor belt and going, oh my god, what is that? What is that?
Look, before we even get to it, this is just very effective, tension buildup, because it is 2 straight pages where you don't see what's going. You just see everyone going, what the fuck? Oh my god, just screaming.
Yeah. And it's mostly like disgust and shock.
Yeah.
Then it is like, ah! And then we cut to a wide shot of the entire group sitting with their sushi as a head goes by on a plate. And when I read this chapter, I did go, wait, really? Is that? And then we get a shot of Denji's reaction, and then everyone else's reaction as Barham sits there like a little fucking dickhead.
Oh, he is straight fucking shithead maxing at this point. He's like,
And then we get a close-up shot of Nayuta's head on a plate going down the sushi conveyor belt. Oh dear! That can't be good!
Minor inconvenience when you think about it. Look, I don't know what to tell you. Consider the copium turned to max levels. I don't buy it yet. Maybe I'm in denial, but I just don't buy it. So I understand for a lot of people this chapter was like not bad, but it was very difficult to read because the idea that Nayuta, a child, is killed is very hard to stomach, especially when she's someone who's so precious to Denji and kind of like the third most important character in this series. It doesn't feel like it's wrapping up. Like, I don't think we're moving into part 3 anytime soon. So it just felt like, wait, really? Like, that's that kind of moment? I don't know. It is worth knowing she is the control devil. She could potentially do a lot of crazy things. Who knows? Barum is also like grade A #1 don't trust this motherfucker person. So I don't know. Maybe she is, and I'll have to like process this down the line. But as it is right now, I am going under the assumption he is just trying to make Denji as sad as possible so he can get that moment he wants of what Black Chainsaw Man or whatever they call it, and get whatever his goal is. But we shall see, I guess.
That's kind of the thing, is that this can mean a couple of things. One is that Nayuta is just 100% dead. It can mean that this is a deception of some kind. It can mean that Nayuta has lost her head, but she's not fully dead because, yes, she is, you know, the control devil, and the only way to fully kill her before was for Chainsaw Man to eat her.
Now, I did look that up, because in my mind, I was like, that's the instant, like, counter. This doesn't... I believe the reason that worked with Makima is because she had deals with the, like, Japanese prime minister that if she ever was hurt, it would hurt Japan instead. And I don't believe Nayuta had anything like that.
Any substitutions going on.
But we could find out that she has managed to make something, or who knows? Like, we don't know what happened in that space in between, and I am choosing to believe she's okay.
The big thing is that Barum did just say to Denji's face, one of the key factors to you becoming the Chainsaw Man we want is for you to be miserable.
Yeah.
And then he presented his foster sister daughter's head to him on a plate, literally. So that is why I say, oh, that can't be good, because regardless of what the reality of what has happened here, Denji's going to get very upset and sad, and that's the thing I'm concerned with.
And he's probably going to try to kill Barum, so he'll go Chainsaw Man, and yeah, it's gonna go very, very, very poorly. This is a great chapter, though, regardless of what the ultimate context to all of this is. But holy shit, it's almost 9:30, so I don't have more thoughts, actually.
World Trigger! Chapter 243, the away mission test, part 39. I'm so tired, Quinn.
This chapter, they remind us that there was a story at one time, though. Isn't that great?
There used to be a story. Remember that? It wasn't just everything was rankings and scores.
There was a moment where Osamu was like, yeah, because I remember when Replica died, and I like had a moment where I was like, did I
oh my god, we remembered a thing that happened.
I had a moment, I was like, did I just see into another timeline? Like, I had completely forgotten that there like used to be stakes and narrative and plot in this series.
Oh god, I'm going to try and blitz through this. Wakamura's squad ranked 4th in the day in the simulation battles. Sua's squad ranked 1st because they did the stuff best. There's a lot of commentary from the monitor room as various different squads comment on stuff, how effective Sua's strategies and stuff were. Sua congratulates everyone. We get a moment where Katori is like, ah ha ha, I'm getting that date. And I had to go like, all right, that was the thing. They said they implied events would happen after this test was over. They kind of like go over like the people that they lost to. And then they established that when they went up against Ninomiya's squad, that the unit that Chika had created had Replica's head, and that makes Osamu think of, oh yeah, Replica like sacrificed himself so that we could, so that we were not all killed basically during the neighbor invasion, and we've got to go and rescue him. That's one of the things that we're doing this for. That's yay. It's by default one of the best World Trigger moments of the year. It feels like
this legitimately had me start getting invested in this series, but
then all the other numbers came in. Uh,
There's a lot. It's more that there's a character that said something that I was like, you know what? It's good. We wrapped up these stupid exams. We're all good. And then there's a character who's like, well,
2 more days.
We have 2 more days.
2 more days.
And like, I had a straight, like, I just like, I think I read this chapter, then went and took a shower, and I just had a moment of like staring into the shower into like the middle distance of just like, there's still 2 more days of this fucking exam. We are never getting to the actual away mission. It's just never happening.
This is part 1 of the test, I'm pretty sure, too. Like, there's more after that. Yeah,
I don't know. I think there's actual battle simulations that eventually happen at some point, but...
God.
Oh my god.
They have a lot more cutting around to different people. The one that I want to make note of is that, okay, actually before that, there's a moment where there's a disagreement between Kusakabe and some of the others over how you should assess how well the squads did. Basically saying like, yeah, it's a matter of leadership, and no, it's a matter of like individual performance. They say that the people who got an idea and then encouraged their squad mates to come up with ideas to support that main strategy tended to do better than everyone who was like, oh yeah, let's all use all your ideas, because then they just kind of did a middle of the road thing that didn't actually lean towards any particular strength. So well-rounded means that you just get rolled over, basically.
Sure.
Kakizaki squad, Taichi's sad. Fuck you, kid. So because he didn't do good. And he's really sad, and he's got his shirt pulled up until eventually everyone's like, no, look, our assignment grade was perfect scores because you came up with a bunch of stupid ideas and were very creative. And he's like, I'll do better, guys. And snot's dripping from his nose because this is his big moment. And so he's got to look cool during it. And then end of the day happens, Sua squad is eating together, and Sua says, hey, while we're eating, let's decide about tomorrow. And Osamu seems to know what's going on. Katori doesn't. That's our chapter. So I guess that's probably where we're going to go into next time, which is more strategizing. That's it.
Couldn't even begin to tell you, but every time I read a World Trigger chapter, I watch Chika firing the shot, and then Osamu beating Namiya squad, and I remind myself, I'm like, it earned it. That was like one of my favorite chapters of all time, maybe like top 3 chapters of all time. It's earned it. Just keep reading it.
All right, we gotta talk about more stuff. Astro Royale.
No Eden Zero, finally, Nick.
Yeah, that's right.
Are finally free. This is like what? Like, outside of like the weeks where we didn't do it because that magazine would run weird. This is like the first time we've talked about like I guess there was like 3-month sabbatical or whatever, but it wasn't a sabbatical. It just wasn't available in English until Kodansha's
it wasn't our choice.
But like this feels like the first time in a while we don't have a hero series to talk about, and I'm just like, what do I do with my hands besides like crumple them into the fists?
Oh my god. Astro Royale, Chapter 11, Torazo Yotsurugi. This is a really weirdly paced chapter. Torazo has come to see the main cast. He's got a Hummer, guys.
I forgot this chapter.
So he's like, all right, Hibaru, you're going to be our lookout. You ride on the roof for some reason. Also, don't fall asleep on the job. Next page, Hibaru fell asleep on the roof and fell off of it. So he's just on the side of the road. Okay. A kid comes across him, and the kid makes a 3-leaf clover turn into a 4-leaf clover.
This child is, like, saddled with sad anime girl backstories to, like, the nth degree. Like, I truly
it's ridiculous.
She's like, she's a toy, but we don't grow. We don't magic power, and my grandma's sick, and my mommy's sick, and my daddy is sick, and I'm just trying to make the world a special place. I hope nobody comes by and kicks over my special little happiness.
Yep. She's gonna go and visit her mom at the hospital. She's like, I've got a bookmark that lets me do stuff. My mommy's sick. I want to get better soon. And when I wished on the star, it gave me the power to make 4-leaf clovers. That's not what you wished for, right? You wished for her to be better, right? Right? I
really do love the idea that, like, whatever entity granted the wishes was like, No, this one I think we are going to do literally. Like, no, how about she does just get the power to turn 3-leaf clovers into 4-leaf ones?
Her bookmark, while she's holding it up, gets cut in half, and so she loses her Astro and can't use it anymore. Oh no, my bookmark! The guy who did it has a fingernail that extends out and slashes through stuff. And he also, for no reason, cuts up the 4-leaf clover that the girl gave him, and it flies away, and he goes, "No!" as it falls off the bridge. It's so dramatic.
It's just so funny. You're like, damn, dog, they really wanted to try to get you on this girl's side very quickly.
So she's upset about that, and then Ibaru's like, "Oh, I'll get him," and then the girl Nono's like, "I won't cry. I promised Daddy when he passed away that I become stronger."
I'm the only thing that could make this little girl perfect, and she's like, "My mommy is sick and my daddy died. But luckily I had his lucky lighter I held on to, and it lets me turn 3-leaf clovers into 4-leaf clovers."
Shink. Oh no, the lighter got cut in half.
He's like, "Thanks to my lighter,
that lighter was passed down through my daddy's family. My dead grandma gave it to him."
All my uncles and aunties are dead, by the way. Also, my dog died today.
Oh, man. So we are introduced to Sine Karyazaki, who is part of the Hawk faction's Astro Suppression Squad, the group that's like, we're going to consume power by destroying everyone else's Astros. And so he's like, yeah, so I was here to confiscate strong Astros, but I was just allowed to just do whatever I want with the weak one, so I just decided to destroy that one. Yay. And Hibara's like, I'm going to get that guy with my fist. And then he just extends out his fingernail and slashes and just pricks Hibaru's neck. And he's like, yeah, hand over your link. Give it to me. I'm going to kill you. Then the Hummer shows up with the rest of the Otsurugi group. And so instead of killing Hibaru and taking his Astro, he's just like, goodbye, and jumps over the side of the bridge. And Hibaru goes over the side like, no! I wish he had done that. He doesn't. So they take the little kid with them as they're riding in the car. And Torzo's like, oh, look over there, Hibaru. It's a big reason why things are so bad in Tokyo. A giant meteor, not a meteor, the meteor didn't do it, but Kasumi Gaseki's been wiped out. So the National Diet, the ministries, the central agencies, all of them are gone. The government and cops are out of commission, and law and order has gone to hell. This series about Yakuza being the good guys, the way that we show things are bad is that all the government and police aren't in control right now. What is happening?
Is it diet? I always thought it was diet.
Not in this context.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Although I do have to, this is so, you're never going to remember this, but you said during the Frieren review, you were like, it's like a poignant series or something like that.
Poignant.
I think you meant poignant, but it was one of those lines. I was like, "Damn!"
Poignant.
I think
I've only ever seen it written down.
It was one of those moments. I was like, "Nick, have you said that word out loud before?"
Sometimes I do words wrong.
Hey,
and,
we all do. I get it.
If you say a billion words a week, then eventually a lot of them are wrong.
Yeah.
I'm honestly lucky that people don't call me on it more often.
I only generally do it when it's one of those ones where I'm like, I've never heard it that way before.
I'm pretty sure it's Diet in this context. Anyhow, so the Hawk faction is roving around. They've got a checkpoint set up, so now they're the police, and they're checking people for Astros and stuff. And so Terasu's like, hey, it's very dangerous if we try and just charge directly through these guys, so let's take a detour instead. And Nono's like, well, my mom's at the hospital up ahead, so I'll just get out here. And so there's some quiet, and Terasu's like, hey, yeah, it'll be bad if we just, like, go straight through this. But then Karan says, Nono needs us. Is there any better reason for us to charge in? And Terasu's like, what's going on? Hibaru's like, no, there isn't. We should do it. And Terasu's like, what's going on?
This is so weird to me. First and foremost, it's just another one of those moments where I'm like, So is Karan supposed to be the main character to this series? And you guys just like, this is like twice now in a row. He's been the one who's been like, hey, why don't we decide to do something? And I'm going to say the cool line. But like, I also like Tarasu's just like a fucking wiener loser. He's just like, I don't think we should, guys.
No, I'm supposed to be the leader of the family. But he's like, guys, we can't just like get involved in everyone's business, right, Kidpa? And Kidpa's like, learn some tact, Tarasu, which is a great line. And then they're like, yeah, let's keep going, Tarazu. And Tarasu says to himself, all I said was we should take a detour. He didn't say that they shouldn't go and go to where Noda wants to go, just that they should go around this dangerous situation. And Tarazu's like, I love that about you guys. And I dig your good sense, Tarasu, which is why I'm not going to listen to it. And he just gets out of the car and walks up to the checkpoint, and Kippa's like, but you don't have your Astro anymore. And Tarasu goes, hey, you guys trying to play cops now? Only losers play around with cops. Right, Hibaru, Tarasu, Kidpa, and Karan? You guys don't get along with cops, do you? That'd be lame. Nono, the kid, tries to warn Tarazu about the extending fingernail, but it immediately goes to his neck. And the guy's like, ha, I'll cut your artery and kill you. And then the fingernail just bends and doesn't slice him. And Tarazu just starts walking towards him. He's like, oh yeah? Well, how are you going to do that? And just keeps walking towards him until the fingernail splits apart into multiple shards. And Hibaru says, Tora's fine. He doesn't even need an Astro, because he's Tarazu Yotsurugi, the strongest of the 13 siblings in hand-to-hand combat.
Cool.
Okay, questions.
Okay.
1.
Yes.
How did this guy's Astro get stolen if he's this strong without it?
Because the other guy must have had a stronger Astro that beats hand-to-hand combat, Nick.
2. How are Astros supposed to be impressive if you can just literally walk through them?
Well, this guy's a dork. Like the only Astro we saw beat on screen is the fucking Clover bookmark. So maybe his sword just sucks or something. I don't know.
3. If Tarazu can do this, then why did Hibaru was in danger from it? Again, the main character, the hero of the story.
I think it's this thing where you're just like. So from what I understand, Tokyo Revengers was about a lot of physical characters. Like, it was, like, I don't think there were, like, supernatural powers. A lot of, like, hand-to-hand combat or whatever. So far in this series, we have a character who's physically strong and punches people. We have a guy with a shield. We have another guy who is physically strong and punches people, but has an Astro that's about deception. And then another character who's really strong and punches people. It feels like this series is, like, trying to be inventive, and it's just like, fuck it, what if it was just a dude who punches? Like, just over and over again. It just keeps going to the well. Like, all right, so we're gonna do an arc. I want to establish this character deals a lot in finances. Fuck, what's their power be? What if he hits people really hard and then like money shoots out?
That sounds like a great power.
Yeah, honestly, not a bad one.
All right, yeah. What a weird chapter. Ultimate Exorcist Kiyoshi, Chapter 2. Maybe I'll make a bunch of friends. It is time for the Exorcist Association to, you know, declare who is, like, graduated from Exorcist school and stuff. And so there's a bunch of people gathered at this academy. We get a lot of shots of weird-looking people who are set to graduate. And there is a note that, for Exorcists, skill decides everything. No one gets to choose their work, except for one. This year's top graduate, the man who exorcised the Demon Lord Meto during his last job, Kiyoshi Harai, step forward! And everyone turns to look towards the entrance, like, I've heard all about this guy. He's taking private lessons. He's really strong. Where is he? I can't wait to see his eyes on him. And our rival character is like, I'm going to surpass him and everything. And Kiyoshi just doesn't show up. And it gets to a point eventually where everyone's like, step forward! But where'd he go? And Kiyoshi is late. He's like, oh, I overslept because I was too excited, and so I decided I would just stay up all night. And then I decided, oh, I'm getting really tired now because I stayed up all night. I can lay down for a minute or two. Oh no, I overslept. So he's really upset about this, and especially because he skipped a bunch of grades because he was so skilled. So he didn't get to make friends at class, and he was hoping that this would be his big day. But he's late. a little old lady drops her food when he's trying to cross the road, so he's got to help her. We get some more introduction to Sosuke Hitsuki, who is like the second ranker in the class. He is wearing glasses and is very arrogant, so, you know, pretty straightforward.
Yep. We gotta have our Sasuke, our Uryu, you know.
A black dog shows up, much like a black goat in the previous chapter, and the demon lord Sata arrives to wreak havoc. He wants to get revenge on behalf of Meto. And they're like, I have sent forward Kiyoshi Hirai so I may devour his soul. And the instructor says, he's running late, so he's not here, so I can't do that. So
it is an amusing joke. I do like that. I can't do it. He's not here yet. And even the demon be like, but isn't today important?
He's like, isn't this like a really important day for him?
This is like a significant one.
Sosuke decides, fuck this, we're not going to wait for Kiyoshi to show up. I'll exercise the demon, shoots him with an attack. Oh, it's not even actually Sosuke. It's a different guy who tries to do that. So he gets knocked on his ass. And then Sata is like, I'll just kill every single one of you. And then he gets blasted through the head. And Sosuke's like, it's always Kiyoshi this, Hirai that. I'm getting sick of it. He's got a gun, Quinn.
That's good.
I exercise demons with a gun. Hell yeah.
That's what John Constantine does.
All the other exorcists step up, and Samba calls them arrogant brats, and off-panel knocks them on their asses. A lot of bodies strewn over furniture. He's beating them all up. And he says, like, that was pretty fun, actually. What's your name? And Sosuke says, my name isn't something I'd willingly tell a demon. So trying to still be defiant and cool. But Samba is going to kill... Sata is going to kill him. And then Kiyoshi shows up in the nick of time, summons a shield to block it, and says, sorry, I'm late. And rolls up his sleeves. So everyone's like, oh my god, Hirai is here! And Sata's like, it's you. And internally, Kiyoshi's like, what's happening here? What's going on? What's going on? What? Which I do appreciate the focus on. It was like, I don't know what's happening. I feel like I've missed a lot of important stuff.
Yeah, some conversations are going to have to be had with me.
Sasuke gives some of the fruit, presumably like the little lady gave it to him as a thank you. He gives it to Sasuke. It's like, leave the rest to me. Crosses his arms in that cool way again. Summons a light sword and slices and dices in a pentagram pattern and beats Sata. And everyone's like, oh my god, he beat the Demon Lord so easily. So Sosuke is, blown away by this. Tries to recover and says, like, our competition starts today, Kiyoshi Hirai. I'm going to surpass you and become the highest level of exorcist, a crossed paladin. And Kiyoshi's like, well, I've heard this guy's pretty strong, and he's also ambitious, and wow, that's a really bold thing of him to say. I really admire that. But he expresses this by looking stern and intimidating like he usually does. So everyone's like, what's with this guy? Why does he look so upset? So, oh no, Kiyoshi didn't make any friends.
He's too intimidating.
It's too intimidating. This was not as good as the first chapter.
Sure. But still fun.
It was okay.
Yeah.
It was okay.
I still enjoyed myself. I'm still optimistic on the series. Nick, we're so low on time. Do we want to just say that Yokai Buster Murakami is about Tanuki and it sucks?
This chapter perplexes me with how nothing it is. Because this is like where we introduce presumably like the female lead of the series. Or
there is an actual female lead in this series already.
Yeah. Hinoko, who is like the senpai character who's supposed to be really competent and cool, but she's like kind of not. She's just like, but it's like, I don't know what the joke actually is with her character, because I was like, okay, this character's showing up. This could go many different ways. She could be like the only sane person. She could be like kind of a cool and competent type, or it could be a joke about any of those types of things. And there's just like not anything funny about her. It feels like she didn't need to be in this chapter. The
scaredy exorcist character is a guy?
Yeah.
Huh. Oh, I truly thought that was a female character. Okay.
Anyway, no. So yeah, she's like reacting to Murakami being all like dismissive of like her fire powers, but saying like, if you're not careful, then you're gonna commit arson. You shouldn't use your firepower that way. And every time that this happens, where like he tests her patience, he just kind of goes, "I'm supposed to be the cool senpai around here," and that's it. That's her reaction. She doesn't get like really angry. She doesn't like bulldoze on past it and continue to act naively. Anything other than what she does would be funnier. And it astonishes me that this series about jokes is bad at jokes to this degree. Because this didn't like upset me or anything. It was like, oh god, what an awful joke. It's just like, just nothing. There's just nothing going on here. Can we not talk about the series anymore, please?
Well, Nick, I would love to do that, but yeah, that's fine. I don't. I don't really have anything to enjoy in this. It's fine. Let's discuss Marriagetoxin.
Okay. Never think about that again, please. Don't scare me like that, dude. So, chapter 93.
Dude! Alright! Back in the podcast!
I sometimes say the word dude. Chapter 93 of Marriagetoxin. Last time, Haibu was fucking murdered, and as becomes quickly obvious, yes, was just his crotch area, the entire, like, pelvic region is missing. It's just gone. And so he's got like his torso and then his legs and then nothing else, and he's fucking dead. So his father Hayabe goes mad, unleashes his flame, all of his clothes burn off. There's an image of a dragon behind him, and he says, "Whoever did this, come forward and admit your crime." Haichi starts to freak out because she's like, "Oh my god, no one's gonna be able to stop him if he goes on a rampage." All of a sudden, Hayabe just stops, and he says, "All of you are to assemble at the Dragon Hall. Every single one of you must be present." And he stalks off, and like the ground is burning with underneath his feet. And Gero realizes he is seething with rage right now. But then he looks down as something clinks against his foot, and he sees what looks like a butcher's knife covered in blood under his foot. Cut away to the central area of the house where a whole bunch of people are saying, "Oh, all of us at the branch families will go into mourning for your son. If there's anything we can do, just say the word." And one of them looks down and his hand's on fire, and Aibe just burns them all. And he thinks to himself, "If only briefly, Haibu, may the flames of these lowly boors appease your souls." So unnecessary. But yeah, he's like, "I'm going to deliver the murderer into hell." Okay. Everyone does meet in the Hall of the Dragon. Specifically, it is Gero's group and then Haibe's children, his remaining surviving children. Mm-hmm. And occasionally we see Kurosaki just like observing the thermometer on the wall as the temperature rises as Haibe gets more and more worked up throughout the scene. Haibe says his midsection was utterly burned to ashes, which is inconceivable. He was a fire user, favored by the flames. To burn him to death should have been impossible because we are resistant to fire, and the more gifted the fire user, the higher the temperatures they can withstand. He was especially talented. So, he says, the only way that anyone could defeat him was that he was ambushed. And Kiyosaki remembers, oh, he said something like that yesterday, that the only way that you could beat me would be to sneak attack me. So Haibe says, there are 3 people here with a motive for this murder. The first, Heisei. Haibu defeated you, took your position as the next clan head. You had a motive. But, with those severe burns, you are unable to control fire. You couldn't have possibly caught him off guard. So, it couldn't have been you. Haichi! You did not think well of Haibu. And as with Heisei, you had sufficient motive to kill your brother. But women of the Fire Clan are not allowed to inherit our techniques. So it couldn't have been you. Seems like a very obvious gap in his logic right there.
It's very funny because when they get to the actual thing, you realize you're like, oh, so really kind of anyone could have done this when
Pretty
you talk about the actual practical way you're accusing somebody. You're like, I guess anybody who could have thrown this at this guy could have killed him.
So he says, that leaves only you, Ushio. I could smell it. That Haibu's body reeked of the Forsaken Essence, and which lowers resistance to fire, as we learned from Haichi last chapter. And she reiterates that right now, and she also points out, yeah, yesterday a few bottles had gone missing. So Haibe says, the vile murderer who killed Haibu called him to the bout grounds and used her power to drench him in Forsaken Essence, then proceeded to burn him to death. Are you exacting revenge on the clan that abandoned you, Ushio? And at first, Ushio seems shocked by this. Yeah. Kiyosaki says, like, no, you didn't do this, Ushio-san, tell him. And Ushio just says, the final bout's a fight to the death. Does it really matter when I kill him? And she's just got this, like, fucking who cares?
Yeah.
So seems to fully fess up to it. Haibe is really pissed off by this, says, how dare a lowly woman like you ridicule our long-standing tradition? Not even your bones shall be left! And he dashes forward towards her to immerse her in flames. And Gero says, stop that. Spray bottles him.
No.
Immediately extinguishes the flames with something from a spray can that he's got, which makes sense. You know, he's got access to all these different chemicals and everything. And he says, the culprit of this crime is not Shizuku. Calls her by her first name, son. And he says, the one who killed Haibu is...
And we'll find out next chapter. I find it a little amusing because we've like ended the murder mystery very quickly. Like,
yeah,
like unless someone knocks this guy in the back of the head, he's about to end it. So you're just like,
no reveal.
This really wasn't much of a murder mystery per se.
No.
But honestly, it didn't really feel like the clues were leading us down a long and winding path. So yeah, we'll see what the ultimate conclusion is next chapter. But I did find it very cool that, like, oh, this guy's slowly heating up the room. Oh, it's getting to be like 105 degrees. Oh, this is crazy. And then just Gero, cool, stop. Yeah, very cool.
I also like that we have Haibe being the person leading the investigation here when it's so obvious that he has no fucking clue what's happening. Because it's like, well, there was 3 people with motive. The next head of a clan of assassins was killed. Are you sure about that?
Yeah, they're really... Honestly, the potential culprits are limitless when you think about it, but whatever. I guess you're like, no, I know.
It could have been that one chef whose dad you killed for no reason.
Yeah, it could have been the pastry chef's dad. So, who knows? I had a thought. I do like that Ushio just has that cold line of just like, it's going to be a fight to the death anyway. Does it really matter when I killed this guy? I was like,
yeah, she is an assassin,
that
too.
Is dope, yeah.
So, hey, to lend credence to that joke theory, that knife was a chef's tool, Quinn. So let's move on to New Exorcist, Chapter 56, Take a Gamble. Wanyudo's arm has been cut off thanks to Suo arriving on the scene, attacking together with Gakuro. And so Gakuro quickly analyzes the situation, thinks we're still in a bad situation. How do we beat this guy? And Wanyudo gets an annoyed look on his face because he's like, my duel got interrupted. I lost my arm. And then they realize, oh, his arm's not generating. That's crazy. How is a level 4 not regenerating? And Wanyudo says, like, yeah, it was a jutsu that Haruhi Otsuki cast as he was dying, and it cost me my ability to regenerate. All right, fair enough. And so he points out, like, yeah, I've only been wounded a couple of times since then. That's why he's got scars. Now it makes sense. But he's like, God, this sucks. I lost my arm. He's very just, like, put off by it as opposed to really mad. Gakuro points this out, and then he says, well, yeah, you guys can't kill me. And as he just disintegrates his arm, oh, now they realize that Suo's got a mark on her face. And he says, yeah, I used my arm as a catalyst to set that on you. Unless you kill me in the next 10 minutes, you will explode. And so he just, is like, got this, just like mocks them over this. They rush forward to attack, and he says, "It's been years since I donned my hollow weapon." And Gakuro's like, "Oh man, I bet his hollow weapon's really intimidating. My feet are wheels now."
Like, but we already have a person whose feet turn to wheels. They're, whatever. Who cares?
Yeah, it's just a little bit weird. He tears through Suo's Shikigami when she tries to use it to shield them. Blasts into the wall, and they're like, "Oh my god, what force that he's got!" And then Suo looks at Gakuro and is like, "What's the matter with you? You're all torn up, and you know how strong he is, and yet, his eyes are determined. So he feels like they can win." So Juanito's like, "That's it. Your strength must be nearly gone. So put everything you've got left into this last attack." Suo covers the entire area with her Shikigami thorn vine things. And then Wanyu realizes that this is creating a bunch of shadows that Gakuro is constantly absorbing as they're constantly being created, which I don't think that's how that works, but maybe it's extending
No, Nick,
vines.
nope, you're all good. Hey. No, makes perfect sense.
So Wanyu does like, "All right, fine. Yes, launch your big attack, if you can." So he gestures towards them. Suo tries to stop him with the thorn, but he just blasts through it. And then she launches a big attack with her foot wheel to act as a shield. He blasts through that too.
Who is the best foot wheel user, Nick?
Keeps on going through the Shikigami, charges into Gakuro, shatters his hollow weapon as he reaches him. Blood spurts out of Gakuro's nose. Oh no, he stopped the attack. And Juanito's like, in retrospect, you were dull. It's like this guy changes his mind on people so quickly. It's like, "Oh, I'm excited. Oh, you sucked. Oh, I'm excited. Oh, you sucked." In his mind,
he was expecting something like a crazy confrontation. It looks like Gakuro just got fucking run over and killed. So in his mind, he's like, "What a fucking disappointment. Like, you actually did just suck."
But then Gakuro goes, "I'm not finished." He's still holding the pommel of his shattered weapon, and it stores up the shadows again. And Wanyu goes like, "How can he use his power when his hollow weapon is broken? It can't be." And he cloaks the Xenoblade in shadows, and Wanyu goes, "At the last minute, and he gets cut off as
Xenodark!
Xenodark!
What a fucking name. So this series already just rips off Bleach left and right. Like it's barely its own original concept and not just like a Bleach like alternate universe fan fiction story. But it truly, like, in the same way like we made the like Bleach Memorial Award for like hands getting cut off, this series needs the new Exorcist the weapon is broken award, because weapons get broken like every fucking fight and it means nothing. Like it seems like there is zero consequence to your weapon being shattered. He just like repairs his instantly. It's not even like an inconvenience.
It feels like the main consequence of having your weapon broken is that you no longer can dash around your opponent and attack them from behind, which is actually an advantage when you think about it.
Well, yeah.
Yep, this was a Shonen action chapter that was not very good. Moving on.
I will say, I know we're trying to speed it up. I will just say, I didn't hate this chapter. I kind of liked it, but I think the one thing missing from this character is I wish he had any established relationship with the other members of his group. Like, the fact that he has no relationship with anybody really does make this feel like a forgettable encounter.
Yeah. We had one scene where they were gathered before.
I don't remember if he talks.
Said anything in it. Yeah. Akane-banashi, story 116, judges results. A kind of old guy in the audience for a.k.a.'s performance wakes up. He fell asleep in the middle of it and missed the entire thing. And he's like, "Oh, it's over," and looks around at everyone,
crying. Everyone's like crying and clapping. This would be like if I fell asleep in the middle of fucking like I'm trying to think of like a good movie. Room. I referenced it earlier. Like Room finishes and I wake up and I'm just like, oh, everyone seems really happy about this. All right, yeah, woo! Woo! Go Captain Marvel.
I like that Kashio and his partner are also there, just like tears streaming down their face. He's like, he was so good. The depth and breadth of his art is amazing. He's not just the foremost of all up-and-coming Rakugoka. His true potential is on the level of an Okanban. He's like, I feel like I'm witnessing the birth of a legend right here. He's so happy. The MC comes out. And he says, all right, thank you, everybody. It just feels like it does not give a lot of gravity to the situation. All right, thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, time for the judging. So grade sheets were handed out to every single person, and Isho cuts them off immediately. Says, I think the will of the audience has been heard quite clearly. Maikeru Arakawa, it's not enough. And everyone is, suddenly stunned by this. Even Maikeru, it feels like, is shocked by this because
he has had the utmost confidence he was going to pass.
Yeah, and Isho does say, "You were true to yourself. You won over the audience, which shows that you can make the masses take notice. Today's performance was not bad. You seized the crowd, but." You allowed some to slip through your grasp, and we see that the old guy we opened the chapter on was not the only person who just fell asleep during it and wasn't paying attention. There's, even a couple people who are kind of just like,
there's someone seemingly still asleep. There's someone dude that waking up.
Yeah. So he's like, I cannot say that you utterly captivated them. I vote no. And then he turns his mic off. So there is, it's not like he was like, no, you sucked, you fail. He just like, yeah, you were all right. Because you got most of the audience to cheer you rapturously, but there were a few people here that didn't, so fuck you.
Yeah.
It's so great. The MC gets really nervous because like, Master Isho just voted no. Does that mean he failed? And then Iken says, hold on. Let's not rush to conclusions. He votes no, but everyone's got to vote here. Rules are rules, so you need to ask everyone's opinions, and he kind of gets the MC back on track. And so he turns to Master Zensho, and Zensho is like hands steepled. You will do this for me pose. When he starts to talk, he says, "Here's what I think. When it comes to the Shinichi promotion of Maikeru Arakawa, he's still crying, snot coming out of his nose. So the MC is like, Master Zensho, shut up! He can't get the words out until finally he goes, yes! He's biting his lip so hard it's bleeding.
So much. It is so much blood.
Just what a panel of this guy like crying, snot oozing out of his nose, blood going down his chin. Yes! And when the MC is like, huh? He's like, I vote yes! I vote yes! He's so angry about it. And Taizen realized like there is no lie in Master's hatred for him. He is forced to acknowledge him because he is honest like that. And he is forced to acknowledge his art. So Iken agrees, Taizen agrees, and so that means that there are 3 judges who have voted in favor of his promotion. But before the MC can say anything, Maikeru takes the mic from him and it says, hey, Master Isho, may I have your decision? And Isho looks up at him and he kind of does one of those, I'm not grinning faces, basically.
Yeah.
And he says, just like your performance, you've got an impertinent nature. Do as you will. So Maikeru passes the mic back to the MC, who says, the judge's result, via majority vote, the promotion test has determined Maikeru Arakawa is to be promoted to Shinuchi.
Yay!
Yeah. What a satisfying result to all this was. I love that we said the whole thing like, oh, Zensho is definitely not going to vote for him, and then he was the one who turned. And Isho, the final boss, still was like, no, that is such a good result to have. They're like, no, he's still the final boss. That's still not approving of you, but we can still move on despite that, as opposed to like no one's going to pass or anything.
Sure, and this still gives the door open that when Akane eventually does it, she can win over all of them, including Isho. So it navigates that space of like not making it so Akane's accomplishment will be insignificant.
Exactly. All right. Fun chapter there. Brings that whole arc to its climax, and now we get to move on to One Piece.
Yeah, Nick, let's talk about One Piece. Chapter 1119, Emmett. We do get a cover page. Yamato is on his journey, and kids are throwing rocks at him because they're like, you're Kaido. So
You're Kaido's kid. Fuck you. Yeah.
We'll see what happens with that. The chapter opens with Kaku having now been freed, just telling Stussy to go. Because it's like, you already know what I'm going to do. We're not friends. Like, when Lucci gets here, I won't be able to stop him. And Stussy's like crying, and he's just like, just go. We cut away after that. It's very sad, but it's also not that sad because we never got to actually really see Stussy be friends with them in any way, shape, or form. So this doesn't hit 100%. We cut over. Luffy and Bonnie are both in this Nika form. They're getting ready, but Mars is there shooting this like fire breath at him. So Luffy's like, okay, you can't hurt this guy by like beating him up basically. So I'm going to do something. He blows himself up real big like a balloon. And he's like, I need you guys to wail on me as hard as you can. Interestingly, he uses the whale as though the noun, like the animal, is opposed to like the verb. So
right.
I wonder
if wail on someone is a different word than that.
I wonder if it's a mistake or if that's like an intentional character choice that Luffy thinks that it's that. I don't know. So Sanji and Frankie are there and are like, all right, Captain orders. But Bonnie's like, you want me to punch you?
Are you sure? Are you sure?
There's a brief moment where Dory and Broggy are like, we have to get the ship. Like, you fools over there, stop dancing. Get turned to the fire. And I do like that they were like, you were just dancing a second ago. But Luffy reaches out, grabs onto Mars, and
apparently that is the proper use of whale on, isn't it?
Isn't?
Is it? Oh. I'm seeing conflicting results on this. This is crazy.
Wow. So I'm an idiot. Hold on, wait. Who translated this? Stephen Paul? I'm sorry. I'm the asshole. Quinn sucks, not you. Everyone loves Stephen Paul here. Unless you're a bad person. I have no idea. So I'm going to say good on you. As Luffy reaches out, grabs onto Mars, and the three of them attack Luffy from behind. But when Bonnie attacks, he starts screaming. Because she does like, memories, right, punch. And he's like, that hurts. And she's like, I didn't realize we were hurting you. He's like, it's going to hurt if you use hockey. You know, Frankie and Sanji are just like, keep the pressure on. And she's like blown away that they have the conviction to like beat the shit out of their friend like this. But it's enough. There's enough force from it that Luffy like rubber band snaps into Mars and sends him fucking flying. And there's like a full Team Rocket Star effect. And I like that I assume it's Luffy who says, yeah, it's gone and it can't come back. Like, it's a bird. He can come back very easily, I think. But they're like, all right, we should get going. We haven't seen Usopp come down any moment. Like, Usopp's group should be coming down any moment now, but they're late. And Atlas says, I'll go and see. And Sanji's like, no, you shouldn't. But Atlas communicates with Lilith and just says like, York is monitoring us. We should ... And I think the answer is we should get away from the Straw Hats because it's like we'd have to divide their attention. Cut over to the robot down in the ocean, and the transmission is actually still going. It's still continuing. I would tell you what it says, but it's like garbled and actually kind of tough to tell if one line is meant to directly lead into the next. So I'll simply say that Vegapunk's transmission is still talking about the Will of Deep, but we don't exactly know what he's trying to say quite yet. But people are reacting like, oh, what's this mean? You know, like the transmission's back. And York's like, that's not how the snail works. You have to actually destroy it, elders. You can't just knock it into the ocean. So suddenly it starts raining around the giant ship. And a bunch of Cypher Pole agents and even the Seraphim are like, flying, like crashing down everywhere because Jupiter basically swallowed them all up and is now just like fountain spitting them up into the air. And now that they're all gone, he's using his powerful suck to try to suck the ship in.
His Kirby suction. Yeah.
Yes. Luffy punched him, is like, hey, stop that. But as he's attacking Jupiter, Mercury gets by. Mercury is like charging towards the boat. And he's like, oh, you gotta watch out for the boat. He's really, really sturdy. We gotta protect it. And we cut over. We see Bonnie has already deactivated her Nika ability. She just says the line. She's like, the future is tiring. Her freedom is tiring.
Freedom is tiring.
Yeah. But we get another little voice. Someone saying Joy Boy. And we see the robot start to rise from the ocean. As the robot, whose name we're about to learn, is Emmett, remembers something Joy Boy must have told them, which was, remember, Emmett, only when the time is right. And Emmett thinks to himself, time is right? And just punches the shit out of Mercury, shattering one of his tusks. And that's the end of the chapter. The Giants are just like, what the fuck is that? And Luffy's like, robot! And yes, for those who do not know, Emmett is connected. It's the Hebrew term, I think, for truth, which is connected to the legends of the giant, or not the giant, the golem. Basically, that was what you like wrote on the golem's forehead to like kind of activate it. So cool little bit there.
Yeah, this is a fun chapter, a quick chapter, but a fun one. I do like that Luffy's solution to dealing with something that he can't beat the shit out of is just like, just put it over there.
Just bounce it real far. We won't have to deal with it again.
Yeah, it'll be fine. I am also happy to see this robot punch something, because that is
fun. Extremely cool. This robot has been walking around or like deactivated for so fucking long that I was like, this robot better do something besides get its ass kicked, and it fucking did. And I love the little tease to what is undoubtedly going to be a future arc that's going to shatter my heart into a billion pieces. But I love that. Remember, Emmett, only when the time is right. And Emmett, like, time is right. Wham! Like, it's very cool.
Yeah, that's where we're gonna leave off with the week of manga. What a crazy week of chapters.
Yes. So many chapters, so many things to talk about.
What was your favorite thing that happened?
I am going to say my favorite chapter was One Piece. I really, really liked Emmett showing up and saving the day. I thought there were funny little jokes in there. I like that we're like, there's like the tease that we might actually get to find out more about the Will of D. Like, I'm hoping Vegapunk hasn't finished talking about that yet. So I had a lot of excitement just going through that and being like, oh, please let them, like, please. But I really, really appreciate that ending. Like, the ending, like, punch. There's something about the way One Piece does, like, punches. I don't think any series can replicate how satisfying they are.
I'm going to say that I think my favorite chapter this week was My Hero Academia. Just like it's a nice conclusion to all the Todoroki family drama, where it's like, look, there was some healing done, but it's not all, sunshine and roses here because we won the day. Like, too much bad stuff happened for this to just all be fixed at once. And more reparations are going to have to be paid by some people, and some people are probably never going to get redeemed because because Dabi's probably just going to die before he has any chance to do that.
He's not going to have the chance to rehabilitate. Natsuo is just never going to make peace with his father. That's just not happening. There is boundaries set up. There are, divides between them, but it is a conclusion. And I think it was very interesting how it was handled.
There were so many worries as we started this whole Endeavor redemption arc thing, where it felt a lot like, I don't know, he did such bad stuff that I don't know if it'll be okay for him to get a happy ending. It's like, he didn't get a happy ending. Like, he got to accomplish his goals, but it's like, he's just like, I'm just going to have to keep on.
It sounds like it's a pretty miserable existence going forward. He's like, the highlight of my day is when I talk to my son who tried to murder me, and he probably won't talk to me very much. So
I really like the conclusion to this how things play out as a conclusion to that story arc, and also just some nicer little bits towards the end too. Like if all the chapters that we get for the last 4 chapters of the series are this level, then it's like this is going to be a very good, not happy
Sure.
necessarily, but satisfying conclusion to a very long running, important series in Jump. And character MVP.
Yeah, I consider Dobby, but it's got to be my boy Emmett. I again, just the robot showing up out of the ocean and I've been waiting for this fucking robot to do something. This was straight up. This was like the Yakuza joke in Simpsons, where it's like, oh, but Marge, the little guy hasn't done anything yet. And when he does it, it's gonna be really cool. Like, we got to see what the little guy did. This robot showed up and just fucking walloped one of these guys. Very cool.
It's for me, this is actually kind of tough. I think it's gonna be Zensho for me, just for hey, look, this guy's been such a piece of shit for this arc, and it was just really satisfying to see him very, very reluctantly cave. Like that one panel is going to be with you. There were some really good single full page spreads this week that we got. There was that. There was the opening of Undead Unluck. There was the 2-page spread of Nayuta's head being revealed. A lot of really good moments in this week of manga.
Yeah. The audience, by the way, picked Akane-banashi and Gensho as the series and character of the week. I didn't mention last time because my eyes were burning, but last week it was a tie between Akane-banashi and Spy Family for character of the week, and then my carer for character of the week, and the other 2 for chapter of the week. So apologies for last week where I had to end the show very abruptly.
Yeah. Also, just a little recognition as well to Marriagetoxin, all that. Just a good chapter, and also like how stupid and over the top Hype was being, and how fucking cold blooded Ushio was. Be like, what the fuck is it matter when I kill him?
Yeah.
Good stuff. We'll have more manga next week, everybody. Thank you all for joining us. If you are in a place where Americans celebrate 4th of July, I hope that your pets aren't too disturbed by the fireworks tomorrow.
Yes.
And we do the show here Wednesdays in the evening, usually around 7:30 to 8 Eastern time. We have all of our past episodes of weeklymangarecap.podbean.com for the audio, youtube.com/weeklymangarecap for the video version. We're also on all the podcast feed type places as well. Our video version features an opening sequence by Malajack Stillitz and Winslow Cheddar, and occasionally has title cards done by Steve Man, whose artwork you can check out by just searching for Steve Man art all across the internet. If you want more Weekly Manga Recap on top of the stuff that we have done over the past, God, it's been so long, like 13 years at this point. Then
it's coming up on 15, I think.
You can check out patreon.com/weeklymangarecap for more content. We produce bonus episodes on a monthly basis if you support us for $5. We want to thank everyone who is part of our community. You can check out the Discord, which will be linked wherever this podcast gets posted. We also want to thank Ninja X3i for maintaining the Google Doc that keeps track of all the statistics associated with the show, the MVP voting and favorite series voting, the year-end rewards that we've done, and past series that we've covered as recommendations, and recommendations we might take in the future if you want to put them up there. That's going to do it, I think.
Yeah, well, I had to give the next recommendation, I believe, is me. So, look, guys, some would say we've had it too good for too long. There is a section of our recommendations that is exclusively used just for Sadistic September, and I'm like, why are we restricting that to just once per year? I
2 months from now.
I have looked into it. I have no idea how this is gonna go. I want to say Base Forever recommended this. It just says My Hero plus Death Note plus Stupid equals this series. We're gonna take a look at Talentless Nana.
What?
I have no idea what it's going to be about. It's just here labeled sadistic. It's probably not going to be good, but we should read. I feel like it has been so long since we have read a truly dog shit series. I have been longing for the days of like a freezing or something like that. Like a chaotic ruin. Like, I want to read some fucking trash.
Could have just waited 2 months. It would have been September.
Then we get to do it again, Nick.
That'll be here we are. Fine.
Goodbye, everybody. Happy 4th of July.